And we should be live. And I can see my face. Hello, everybody. Nice to have you on board. We have a killer dog, but it should be okay. So, hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the Shortwave show, but it's in a special place today. It's direct from the Canadian International DX Club Barbecue. And that's distracting. And so we are, of course, having our live show direct from Greenfield Park, which is the headquarters east of the Canadian International DX Club. And we have also what I believe is someone from headquarters west, which I believe Mickey.
CIDX Vice
Hello,
President.
bonjour.
Bonjour.
CIDX Toronto.
And it's nice to have a live audience. It's like, on the TV shows when you listen and it says like, oh, this was filmed in front of his live studio audience. It's one of those rare times that it happens, actually. So, streamed in front of a live outdoor audience.
And around the world on Armed Forces Radio.
And of course, there's a chat room where you can join in. My name is Gilles, and I'm located, in Greenfield Park today instead of Montreal. And of course, we are here at the annual barbecue. And I'll have a question with that because there's a name that comes with the barbecue. And we'll be, of course, having a lot of fun, and hope you guys are going to have a lot of fun watching this live show. So there's in the chat room, Matambali, nice to have you here. Max Headstrong, hey there. Elton Byington from Baltimore, K3JWA. Dan Walsh from a humid New York City. Matambali is from cool Colorado. Bobby Burgess is in Louisiana. Nice to have you on board. Says conditions are terrible today. I know that the K index was like 3 earlier, or almost 4 at some point. So it's possible. Sean Fahey, nice to have you here. Dan Walsh. Dada Duden. Chris Lobdell, nice to have you here.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris.
Calvin, nice to have you on board. Nick Amedov from Romania. PLF Radio from France. JD Williamson from South Africa. PA1WX from the Netherlands. Syrian Willow from Syria. Jack N9IIF in Illinois. Blanchard 3. Nice to have you here. Dexfar74. Nice to have you here. Richard Cook from the UK. And it's nice to have everybody on board as we will be talking about radio a little bit. Talking about radio clubs like the Canadian International DX Club. And by the way, we can, of course, use this opportunity to say that the Canadian International DX Club has a beautiful bulletin called The Messenger. It is a monthly publication, an electronic publication that you can get. If you've not asked yet, you can actually ask for a sample copy of this at CIDXclub@yahoo.com. $10 a year for the membership, 3 years. And we were talking just before the show that there's quite a few new members that come from the fact that this live show exists. And of course, it's a very, very nice little publication that you'll get every month. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. Terry Ladd, VE2WTQ, nice to have you on board. Stay away because of poison ivy. Okay. And are you broadcasting from your phone on 4G? I'm broadcasting with my laptop through my LTE connection on my phone. And so it should. Last year worked really, really well, but I don't have the same phone as last year, so hopefully it's going to hold on. Stephen Wood, nice to have you here.
Steve Wood. We know Steve.
Steve. I always say Stephen. It's like Steven?
Steven.
It's Steven, right?
We just call him Steve.
Boston area DXers.
And we have Steve in Australia from the future, of course, because they are, and of course there has to be a plane passing by. Steve in Australia, where it's like 7 a.m. or something like that. Don Woman, VE6JY from Smoky, Alberta. And I'm Mapper from Moscow. Missed the show yesterday, and what a surprise, a Saturday show. Cool. Nice to have you on board from Moscow. And it's fun to have all of these people all over the world. 6 a.m., Steve. I don't know. You know what? It's great that you're here, Steve, but I would personally sleep at 6 a.m. and look at the show later on. I don't know. It's
We should.
But thank you for being here.
We should say hello to. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's on today, but this is the new member we got yesterday. His name is Javier, and he's in Spain.
Javier in Spain.
Echo Bravo 1 Charlie Alpha Romeo.
Echo Bravo 1 Charlie Alpha Romeo. New member of CIDX.
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
Yes.
Cool.
So we welcome him.
Jerry says, I heard the beers are frosted and the barbecue is sizzling. Well, it was sizzling earlier, absolutely, and we had a very smoked out Sheldon. Vianney Arsenault, VA2 VM8 from Gaspésie area.
Oh, we in Gaspé next week.
And
Bye, Danny.
Janice will be in Gaspé next week. What am I drinking? The usual Fin du Monde beer, usually. And we will have a few people showing up. And I think, Danny Shortwave Radio DX, nice to have you here.
Hi, Chris. Say hi to Chris Lovedale.
Douglas Perry from Ontario, nice to have you here. Oh, really? I'm hearing my voice somewhere.
Yeah, it's me. Sorry.
There was actually a talk the other day about how people don't like to listen to their own voice, and I said, after thousands of videos and live shows, I kind of got used to my voice, with or without hearing it from a radio or something. So no one broadcasting on HF. We have, of course, a monitoring station. We have Eric Petral with his ICOM ICR 8600.
And
That
ICR 32.
and he's got also the ICOM ICR 30 portable.
There it is.
There you go.
So better not leave that alone more than 5 minutes because I might be going home with them. I would not do that. Anyways, everybody knows where I live, or almost, so I think it's not a good idea to do it. So hey, how about Sheldon?
We have Skype.
You have Skype? Yeah. Okay. So on Skype, we find you with
Look for me, Sheldon Harvey,
Sheldon Harvey.
or it's Sheldon.Harvey79.
Sheldon.RV79. So you can actually contact through Skype if you want,
and we will see you.
and we'll see what you look like. And so if you want to join in, I guess you will have some requests at some point happening.
We'll watch. We'll have somebody watch this.
So, hey Sheldon, come take a seat.
Here I come. Here I come. Do I look good?
Well, with this type of lighting, we all look really bad.
It's as good as it gets. So
Actually, we look like two ghosts that come from somewhere.
that's right.
A star
But,
is born.
It's beautiful, and
We have to put our good side forward. We should turn around.
yeah, maybe we should put some, put makeup because it's HD now.
It's the sun that
And,
makes me this white. It's not really this color.
Oh, yeah.
I age on the computer.
You're a little, TV
And
makes you a little rounder.
for whoever sent me a little post yesterday that my beard looked wrong, well, I kind of, fixed it a little bit. I hope you're happy now. And actually, I don't really care what I look on the camera. So, anyways, Ralph Bender, hey there, nice to have you on board. And here's your chance to get a tan. I don't tan. I become like a lobster. I
Me
become
too.
red.
Yeah.
So I kind of stay out of the sun most of the time.
Yeah.
So, hey, Sheldon, how are you?
I am good. Thank you all for everyone here for coming and everyone that's online. I see your names go by every week when we're watching the show.
Yeah. And for those that have never seen Sheldon, well, that's Sheldon Harvey that's in the chat regularly.
Yep. And we'll have some of your other contacts will be sitting in this chair off and on throughout the afternoon.
Cool.
So,
How's the state of what's happening at CIDX?
Well, you've been doing a great job of publicizing us. We should give you a sales commission, I think. But we really appreciate what you do with this YouTube channel, because it's really brought a lot of attention to shortwave. Something that a lot of people keep telling us, why are you still doing this?
Yeah.
And I think you've done a good job of explaining to people that there's still a lot of stuff out there.
There is. I get the usual. There's nothing, or shortwave's dead. I even got an amateur radio operator the other day that left a comment. Well, shortwave's dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not listening, because
No,
it's different, but it's not dead.
No, there are things out there, and you just have to be patient, and you have to be curious.
Yeah.
You know, push the buttons, turn the
Yeah.
dials, play with antennas. We're coming, I hate to say it, but we're coming towards the end of the summer, and once we get into fall and winter,
Yeah.
conditions are generally speaking, you know, it gets darker earlier,
Yeah.
so signals start coming in more. There are things out there for you to listen to.
Absolutely.
And you know, you need to poke around. You need to interact with other people who are listening, which is what this program is all about.
That's why this exists. Yeah.
And what we've done is we've been doing CIDX was formed in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
And we are a general coverage radio club, which means if it comes out of a radio, whatever band it is, whatever frequency it is, whatever, we'll try to talk about it and share information on what's out there.
Yeah. The Messenger is a great bulletin, I gotta say.
Yeah, we were talking this morning. There were a lot of shortwave and a lot of listeners clubs around for many, many years. A lot of them are gone. We are quite happy to say that we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
And our numbers are actually going up as members. We don't
Cool.
have the big membership that we had before, but we have a dedicated group of people. And now we're bringing new people in. One thing I'm finding is with your YouTube shows is that there are a lot of people coming in at entry level, ground level.
Yes, absolutely.
They're buying their first little portable radio. Yeah. They're looking for advice of what they can hear, what they can use it for, how they can get better reception. So this is the next generation. This is, you know, the continuation of what we've been doing since 1962.
I had a email this week from an older woman in, I think she's in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, and she sent me a link to the radios on Amazon and saying, well, you know, I see your shortwave radio stuff, and I live in a condo. I don't know, you know, if it's important for me to say that, and I'd like to have, you know, can you just tell me which radio is the best or not? And you know, it's interesting because I am. This is a media that reaches, because the average age of a YouTube viewer, I don't even think it reaches 20 years old.
Wow.
Because YouTube is a very, very, it's a platform for young generations. I mean, teenagers today don't watch TV, they watch stuff on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the experiment of this channel is that we reach an older audience, which is connected. And it's fun to see. And I'm actually surprised to see as many newcomers thanks to what I do here. So it's kind of interesting. I have a question about, because when you post the Canadian International DX Club Barbecue,
right? There's
a name.
Oh, yes, we haven't even mentioned that, and we should. We generally have a little toast because we haven't done that. One of our longtime members who passed away, Jim, how many years ago?
4 years ago, 2014.
2014. A gentleman named Vernon Aikida, who was also a ham operator, V2 MBS, and he passed away at a very young age, unfortunately, and had been a longtime member of CIDX, best friends with Jim Hay, who's here today, and we've known Vern for, more years than we care to remember, I guess. And so when we heard about it, we've been doing this CIDX barbecue for many, many years. We hosted it here for many years. Janice took it at her home for a number of years, then came back here. And so a few years back, we decided to remember Vern Aikida by naming this the Vernon Aikida Memorial CIDX Barbecue.
Okay.
So to Vern, wherever Vern is today, he's listening and hearing our signals, which carry on forever. So, so yeah, that's where the name of the barbecue, the dedication of the barbecue.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're also mentioning earlier that the International Radio Report will be relayed.
Yes, we've been doing a show on a local campus community radio station, CKUT 90.3, which you've heard Jill promote for us, on Sunday mornings at 10:30 Eastern, 14:30 UTC. That show has been on the air. We're in our 31st year at CKUT. We went on the air at CKUT the same week that station went on FM. Wow. So we've been there since day one. And we got contacted by a gentleman named Tim Gaynor, who is in New South Wales, Australia. And he listens to us streamed online. each week, and he really likes the show. And he is about to restart a small shortwave radio station in Australia called Unique Radio. And he's had to relocate, and he has the transmitter off for a while, and he's getting set up in his new location. And he's going to be putting the station back on the air. But in the meantime, he has also purchased some time on a U.S. religious shortwave broadcaster, WINB, in Red Lion, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he has asked for our permission to relay the International Radio Report from CKUT. And he did the first relay of our last week's show this morning, Eastern Time, 7:30 Eastern on WINB. So that is 7:30, 11:30 UTC. And it will be there for the time being each week. So like next Saturday, you will hear tomorrow's International Radio Report rebroadcast. What he's hoping to do is get additional time on WINB so he can run an evening broadcast relay of it as well. The frequency at 11:30 UTC is 9265 kilohertz.
9265, yeah.
And at that time, they're targeting North America, but he is also hearing that transmission in New South Wales, Australia.
Wow, okay.
On shortwave. So
that's good. That's
so
good.
9265 Saturday mornings, Saturday at 11:30 UTC.
11:30 UTC.
Yep.
Oh, that is cool.
Yep.
Okay. What have you been listening lately to the radio? Have you
Noise.
tuned the bands? Noise, yes, okay.
Lots of
Okay.
noise.
Yes, I happen to live in a very noisy area, and it's quite difficult to. I do a fair amount of medium wave DXing.
Okay.
I don't do as much shortwave as I used to, but I still enjoy the medium wave. I do have an indoor loop antenna.
Okay.
I have a Sony 6800W receiver,
Okay.
and I also have a Kenwood R5000. And those are my listening tools. But again, I have to fight the noise from the area here.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Greenfield Park is just a short distance to the east of the island of Montreal.
And of
So-
course, they call it the South Shore.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
It's not really south. So
East Shore.
it's close. It's more east than south, but it's across the river from Montreal. But if you take Montreal, the South Shore, and Laval, you're talking a metropolis of what, over 4 million, I guess it is?
Yeah, something
Probably
like that.
something like
That's
that.
about 4 million, yeah.
So take 4 million people that are generating how many different sources of noise per person?
Yeah.
And that'll give you some kind of indication as to what we have to deal with. In a,
know,
many of our viewers here today are probably fortunate enough to live in nice, quiet
And out of those 4 million people, there's like 0.0001% of shortwave
who
listeners.
own a shortwave. Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
So yeah, it's challenging. It's not what it used to be, and
Yeah, it is
and this
challenging.
noise is, in our years, I guess it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
I can go back, say, 5 to 10 years, and I would say in that, let's say 10 years, I would say that the noise level has probably multiplied 10 times easily.
It kind of grew in a short period of time. Just in a few years, we went from a little bit of noise to a lot of noise, and I think it has to do with a lot of the changing technologies, and especially with the popularity of all the cheap Chinese electronics coming in.
Right.
Those are killer devices for radio.
Well, you did a report for us on International Radio Report about noise,
Yeah.
and tried ways to try to A, identify it,
Mhm.
and B, to try to defeat it.
Yep.
Identifying it's easy. Defeating it
Defeating is
something
another
else.
story.
Not so easy.
And if it comes from the neighbors or,
Yeah.
just can't go there.
It's a different story. So
Can you stop watching your TV, please?
yes.
I don't think you're going to be
Traditions.
a good neighbor.
But many things, even if you turn them off, they're not really off.
No, absolutely.
You know,
The
and it's-
majority of devices today are not
Well,
off when you turn them off. There's that,
Yeah.
just a little bit of current in the power supply.
Well, we're gonna make a few people really envious today, though, that are watching, because we're gonna bring in some people later on who live in some very nice, quiet areas and have lots of property and have very big antennas.
Well, you mean those people that I'm jealous of when I watch what I look at the logs of everything
Yes.
they're receiving, and you're like,
Like,
okay.
I won't mention any names, but somebody who happens to be here from Alberta today, earlier today saying, well, how come you're not hearing Tanzania on shortwave? Because it just bombs in at my place.
Yeah.
Funny guy. Yeah, well, some people are in that fortunate situation where they have the real estate, they have the property, they have less people around, less noise. If you can get, this is the interesting thing, and I think part of the appeal of radio and the mystery of radio is that the station, when the station turns on the transmitter and the signal goes out, it's there.
Yep.
The challenge is whether you can get to it or not with your radio.
Yep.
The station is putting it out there, and it's up to you to go and chase it down. It's like a fox hunt sort of thing. You're trying to find it and pull it in sort of thing. It's like fishing.
Yep.
But in some cases, if you've got obstacles between you and the signal, it's hard to get to it. If you're in a fortunate position where you don't have those obstacles, then it's really quite amazing when if you've ever had a power failure at your house.
Oh, man.
And all the power goes out in your neighborhood, and you suddenly turn the radio on. That's what radio's supposed to sound like.
Absolutely.
Nice and a little hiss in the background. And when you hit a signal, it just jumps out at you. Now, the signals are in there somewhere in the back, but you're blocked from a lot of them.
I'm pretty sure that everybody here is super happy when there's a power outage.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the other people in the house, if you want to go down and hit the power switch, they're not too happy about that. So
yeah.
that doesn't go over very well. So you can't really do that. But so you have to get creative. You have to try to find ways to get away. You do your little walks in the park.
Yeah, that's why I did a little series of walk in the park more about and showing that. Well, there's DXpeditions that are like these. Some people have these, shack, like in the middle of nowhere on a remote island somewhere.
Yep.
But we don't have that possibility.
Yep.
And a lot of people will just not have the time or the resource. And if you got a little portable receiver, well, the walk in the park videos I'm making right now are to show that just going in the middle of a park where you suddenly move away from the homes, you still see them. I mean, in the videos I clearly show that they're not gone. I mean, they're just farther away.
Right.
And it's really, really different experience. And you hear these stations that I don't hear at home, and it's because the signal would be there at home also. Because if I'm hearing it in a park that's 5 minutes from where I live, signal's there at home also, but the noise is too high. It's just washing it out.
Yeah.
So noise is unfortunately here to stay, and it won't get better.
I have a weird circumstance here that I think your viewers will get a kick out of. Alan Roberts, who's here, who I've known for many, many years, and he lives like literally 5 minutes away from me. But he likes to experiment with different types of antennas, and he runs some of his radios off of 220 instead of 110.
Okay.
And he's created all kinds of little devices and stuff, and fancy antennas and whatever. And quite often he'll call me up and say, some certain signal is coming through or whatever on a certain frequency. And he used to pick up a lot of long wave signals. So long wave's doing really well here tonight, 5 minutes away from me. I turn on the radio, nothing. I'm just blasted by noise. But he's found some ways to get around some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I had a nickname for him, though. I used to call him the signal sucker. That when he turned on his radio, all the signals got sucked into his radio, and anybody that lived anywhere near him couldn't hear a thing. Alan got all the signals.
Doesn't want to share.
No. But no, we have some very talented people like that. Don Moman, who's online with us today. Go look up VE6JY, and you want to see an antenna farm? There's a little video about VE6JY, and take a look at it. It's mind-boggling. But people have gone to great lengths to listen to stations, to transmit if they're hams, to communicate, and there's a lot of interesting things that people can do. But you really need to try different things. And we know some of you've gone out, you bought that new little radio, and you may be finding yourself very frustrated.
Absolutely.
I'm not hearing anything. Like how come?
And it's easy to get frustrated also, even for somebody who's been listening for a long time, like I do.
Yeah.
Because I go to do my these little DXpeditions of Barry Island, which is a little island to the northwest of Montreal. And I hear all of these signals, and I go back home and I turn on the ICOM, and I'm like,
A much better radio.
yeah. And it's like I don't hear much except Brother Stare and 36 different example of frequencies and times. And you just feel like, well, I'm gonna turn off the radio. I think it's like boring. But I try to, because I'm promoting radio, so if I can't say, well, I turned on the radio, it was so bad that I turned it off.
Yeah.
Because I'm promoting it, and I try to like just sit down and say, okay, don't turn off the radio, tune around, and just find those signals that you're capable of receiving.
And use the resources that are out there too. Like you always refer to a couple of the sites with what's on at what time and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And also, I get frustrated sometimes on Fridays watching the YouTube show, and some guys will come on and they'll say, oh, I'm getting a good signal on this station. And I can tell there's some people frustrated. They're like, how come I'm not hearing this? But they're in different parts of the world.
Absolutely.
And often we don't, like when you run the rundown of who's checked in, you try to say where they are. But quite often somebody will come back on and say, oh, I'm hearing such and such a station. But they don't say where they are. So just because one person in, like we had somebody from Syria, if they're in Syria, they're hearing a station, we're not necessarily going to be hearing
There's
it
a good
here.
chance we don't hear it here.
Well,
So
it's not just that. Like, I belong to a long wave group, and we're in the east coast of the U.S.
Yep.
And there was a night where within like 15 minutes, we all said who the strongest station was at our location, and it was all 3 or 4 different stations. So,
there you go.
there you go.
Yeah, that's what
Some
can
other
happen.
ones I couldn't hear at all.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised when I look at the people in the chat when I tune around, and people compare such and such signal, and what happens is just 500 miles. I mean, it's not that much when you talk about the Earth,
Right.
and just 500 miles can make a huge difference in the strength of a signal. I've noticed a few times that yesterday, for example, there was a few signals that I was getting just barely. We were barely making it. And people that were in the southeast of the United States, they were getting them like really, really, really strong. And like Mickey always gets the stations like,
Well, yeah.
it's just, oh, well, it's coming in just barely. And he says, oh, wow, here it's like plus 20. It's
Well,
like,
when you live in a place where there's grizzly bears in your backyard and moose, you got a moose as a pet. Yeah, they hear things that other people aren't going to hear. But,
So up to your...
yeah, snow and
living in your igloo.
exactly. Skiing to work. Oh, yeah, he doesn't work anymore either. So. That's right. No, so it's different for everybody, and that's why you need to just keep trying. And the conditions, like you said, conditions will change from day to day, sometimes from hour to hour. So you just have to keep going. I think that's the toughest thing sometimes to explain to people when you say you listen to shortwave is, you have to explain to them that, first off, you don't speak 82 languages. They need to understand that the stations were broadcasting in different languages, so you may hear an English, you may hear a French, or a local language, but you don't have to understand them all, obviously. And that it's not like listening to your local FM station that's 24 hours a day on the same frequency, and they're always there. These are stations that cover different parts of the world at different times of the day. They change frequencies, so you have to work at it. It's not like just turning on your radio and there it is. So, certain frequency ranges that work certain times of the day, other frequency ranges that work different times at night.
Yep. And you know what? There was I took a walk about 2-3 weeks ago, and I ended up in La Fontaine Park. And I had a portable radio in my pocket, which is because I'm weird and I do this. I was sitting on a bench, and I extend the antenna. Everybody's looking at you like, what are you doing? What's that? But there's actually this woman on a bike that she just crossed, looked, and stopped, and came back to actually ask me what I was doing. And I told her, there's shortwave radio, and there's stations from all around the world that I receive on this little radio. And I had just done an ETM scan on the CountyCon GP5. And I said, for example, I started like just tuning what the receivers got, and I said, well, for example, this is Spain, and this is that, and this is that. And she was like, really? Yeah. How do you know? Well, when you've been doing this for 35 years, you kind of know.
Yeah.
And she said, but you don't understand the language. I said, okay. There are stations, of course, in Arabic, like there was the Saudi Arabia station.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand a word. But I was explaining to her that there's a lot of services that have different languages at different times of day.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have English and French. And she was amazed. She was like, wow, thank you so much. I learned about something I didn't even know existed.
She then went home and said to whoever,
there was a weird guy in the park.
Really weird guy in the park.
Weird guy in the park with a radio and an antenna.
Who doesn't have a life. He probably lives in the park. What could you say? Anyways, I am going to let some other people speak to you. We actually have two of our vice presidents from CIDX with us today. Where's Gilles?
He's having a nap.
Oh, Gilles around somewhere. Gilles over there. But we'll put Mr. Big Signal here from Alberta on to talk to you for a bit.
Come over, Mickey.
So we do have the Skype up and running. If you do want to talk to us and face-to-face, we can actually see some of you people who are just names on the screen here right now.
Absolutely.
So look for me on Skype, and I'll link up with you there, and we can actually see you instead of them just looking at us.
It's a different side.
All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon, and to everybody out there in the world, good DXing.
So, welcoming to the chat room, Vancouver Island DXer, Brian, VE7AUL.
Oh, he's a new CIDX member, too.
New CIDX member, too. Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
This is cool. We have, let me just go in the chat. I lost my little spot here. Tudo Channel, hey there, nice to have you here. Brett Wayne, nice to have you on board. KC2NXP, in the state of New York. Bobby Burgess, how often you two know each other? Well, first time I've seen Sheldon in person.
It was on that wanted poster, wasn't it?
I had to pay for the bailout. I guess it's.
1 hour.
Do you remember what year was the radio festival thing?
Oh man. Janice, do you remember? When did we do those radio festivals?
That was in the early 90s, 91, 92.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
91, 92.
91, 92. That's when I joined the club back in those days.
Okay, well, that's the first time we met in person.
Yeah.
I believe.
And I came to your place once with a computer.
Yes.
That you promised to fix the noise for me, and you didn't.
Well, actually, I didn't change anything. So.
Wishful thinking.
Yes.
But it was, worth a try.
Yeah.
Worth a try.
But then we knew of each other for a long time.
Yeah. There's like, we would be popping up here and there in different little things. I would participate.
It was this channel, though, that brought us back together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, one of the times my name would pop up probably when you hosted that 2-meter Sunday night net.
Yes.
And there was one of the stations would always take phone calls from listeners that are not ham radio, the Gateway
station. Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Ralph Bender, hello there. Who else am I missing? If I haven't said your name, please say hello. Leon Hutchison, nice to have you on board. Your show is good for shortwave. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Richard Cook says, yes, 9265 is the frequency, as we were talking about WINB. Anybody else? Vienna Sono says, reception and shortwave listening is a passion for life. Yep, pretty much. I mean, I was hooked from, I was 13 years old. And I'll be 50 in 6 months, which I just can't believe. Down Brown, nice to have you here from La Belle, Florida, KQ4YM. Sorry. PLF Radio says, just shown in recent videos on the park, there can be locations with low noise where he lives. Yeah, you just have to sit alone in a park, look weird. And you'll listen to all the stations. You'll listen to tons of stations. I can tell you that. I mean, the last time that I went there were more people in the park than usual. And I can tell you, the people that were walking their dog kind of... It's like, yeah, I'm listening to the radio. Look, I'll move away somewhere where, behind 3 trees or something. Because So, anyways, that's the thing that you got to be used to. It's like, don't care about whatever people are or what they're saying.
Somebody just shot your
And
neighbor.
much of the noise comes from compact fluorescent and LED light bulbs. Yeah, got to be careful with the lighting systems, power supplies. Nick Pim. Hi guys, from Nigel. Here is I'm from Smoky, Calgary.
Hey,
Oh,
Nigel.
Nigel. Yeah.
Hi, Nigel.
Bring any radios with you? No, I had enough of bringing my computers.
I see Nigel on Skype, but he's always on. He never goes and uses it, though.
Rock the Tech Guy, hey there, nice to have you here. F. Blassie, nice to have you here from Oakland, California. Fast Load, that lives like 5 kilometers from where I live. And yeah, absolutely. Fast Load is a great example of two places that are quite close. I mean, he lives more like in Montreal North, and I'm in Rosemont, and it's not that far away from each other, but I get signals that he doesn't, and it kind of shows the differences in the noise floor at each location. Because within a city, also, we got to remember that within a city, it's not equal. The noise is not flat. There are places within the city that have more noise than others. Where I used to live before was so quiet, and I realized only when I moved to the new location, where I just turned on the radio and was like, okay, this is going to be a challenge. VA2XMX Petro, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Just want to say hi to everybody if possible. Joshua Gosnell, nice to have you here. Jeffrey Kropp, nice to have you on board from New Hampshire. I always get mixed up with these two-letter abbreviations for the U.S. states sometimes, like Maine and Massachusetts. And Romania on 13650, strong in the UK. For those who want to listen to Radio Romania, 13650.
Our next door neighbor is Romanian. We should crank it up on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
And see if he comes out.
I got pictures in front of Radio Romania in Bucharest. I'll show you later.
TDWRRCH, strange account name. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I was looking at the name. Hi from Gary KD1TE, a BADX guy, a BADX.
Oh, guys,
guy.
a BADX guy is on. Sorry, what's the name again, please?
Gary.
Oh, Gary Thorburn.
KD1TE.
Gary, hello.
This was a shout out
From John.
from John.
Massachusetts via Quebec back to Massachusetts.
Yeah, we're getting Radio Romania.
Oh, you're getting it a little bit, 13650. Try 11850. You're on 11850 also. Sometimes it's better. Somebody was telling me the other day, you're kind of an encyclopedia of frequencies. And I'm like, yeah. Hal, Willie, greetings. Nice to have you here. Greetings, Jill, Sheldon, and everyone. Alan, Willie, VO1001SWL or VOPC1AA from Carbonear, Newfoundland.
Yep.
I'll be sending in for membership to CIDX soon after an absence of a number of years.
Yay.
Woohoo!
Welcome back.
We want more of those.
Not too much of the 11 megahertz.
No.
That's good.
Okay.
So, Abhishek Das, nice to have you here. Do we prefer SDRs or digital radio? All the types of radios have their positive, negative points. I gotta say that since I use a software-defined receiver, I'm pretty amazed at the flexibility of the tuning. But I still love to tune into a good portable receiver. Jason Wallace from New Zealand, nice to have you here. Mad Radio DXer says, I've been told I look like a mad person when doing my DXing. Hence my name, Mad Radio DXer. We pretty much look weird. Anyways, it's okay. I think we're a happy weird bunch.
Yes.
Rock the Tech Guy is K2BBF, by the way. So, nice to have everybody here. It is a small world. Thanks to the internet. It's just amazing. I mean, we're people from different parts of the world joining and talking about radio. So before he falls asleep.
He's from a different time zone, you know.
Well, I've been so far away from home.
Oh, you're the party
I'm
animal.
really-
I need to bring him with me when I have beers up to 3 a.m. because you're like,
That's
you
right.
know. So, Mickey, hello there.
Good to see you again.
It's good to see you in
Yeah.
person. You know, we saw each other, last year? The barbecue was the last.
Last year, huh?
Yeah.
For sure.
And so you're vice president
Of CIDX.
of CIDX. And you are doing amazing reception of radio stations. Anything notable? Anything that you just think, well, you know, in the past month or so, I've heard this or that. It was just amazing.
Well, I've been gone now for a month from Alberta, so.
He's gonna get out the 400-page book.
Yeah. So I've been missing out on all the new stuff. And speaking of like Nigel and Don watching today in Alberta, where the smoke is so thick from
Yep.
the BC fires, so I hope they're all right and they can see the antennas. But when I get back, it'll be getting into the real DX season, September again.
It's
And
yep.
the mornings will be darker than they were when I left. 'cause
Yeah,
the sun was
we
coming
are
up
getting.
at 4 a.m. And
Yeah, we are getting to that time of year. eh?
so the 60 meters in the mornings will be alive again with the Indians and the Australians. Interesting that Nigel got contacted from this fellow in Australia that's going to put on another Australian low power shortwave station.
Oh, that is cool.
So that's going to be fun.
That's cool.
To track them down. And
Of course, we're all still hoping for a return of Radio Australia, which, as time goes by, is less and less probable. But you know, at least there's a few replacements of these low-powered shortwave stations down there.
well, we were talking the other day about WRMI and running these oldie programs of
Yeah.
oldie music, and
Yeah.
what's wrong with streaming or picking up some of the streams from Radio Australia, Radio Canada International still streaming,
Yep. Yep.
but
That's interesting.
Not sure.
Nobody knows. Sheldon, but just by a chance, do you know anything about when Radio Canada's when they shut down? So if they kept, of course, the internet presence,
The internet site
is it
there.
still?
It's-
Do you know if
it's-
it's popular or anything, or there's?
They claim that it is popular, but they won't give you any numbers.
Yeah.
And
I got a lot of.
we go to different events, particularly Winterfest in March, and people don't even ask us about RCI. So we don't think there's very many people using. It's strictly an online internet radio service, basically.
Yeah.
The stuff is not out on shortwave, so we find that people kind of lost interest, and they preferred to hear the station out of a radio as opposed to out of a computer.
I think a lot of people who are listening on the radio also are maybe not connected to a point where they can listen to the service necessarily also.
Yeah.
And okay, so you'll be returning to your radio habits.
yes,
as they say.
and by the end of the month I should be back home and reporting what's going on out there. And
Okay.
as you were talking about the noise and whatnot, in today's day and age now we have the SDR radios
Yep.
that allows us to get away from that noise.
Yep.
And so there's still a lot of interesting stuff out there. The Kiwi is very popular right now.
Yep.
Kiwi radio.
Kiwi SDR, yeah.
And, is it SDR8.HU? You can get on to
Oh, yeah,
anything
that
around
is-
the world. And there's a few guys
an
that have
amazing
some
one.
pretty good quiet locations that you can hear. And if you think that's cheating or whatnot, you can get close to your area. And
I found out something I didn't know about the Kiwi SDRs, is that the person that has it online can actually break through the web page and talk to you. And I did not know that. And it happened to me a couple of weeks back because I was on the Swedish SDR. There's one in Sweden that I like because it's very sensitive and has very little noise. And I was totally surprised to see the guy that has that Kiwi SDR online talk to me and asking
when
me.
you say talk to you,
It was like a chat,
a chat,
like a little chat box that's
because they
just
do see
open.
who's on.
Yeah,
they
but
can
I
see
didn't.
who's
I
on
didn't.
and-
Yeah, but I didn't know that they could do that. This was the first time it happened ever. So I was like, oh, okay. So it was kind of nice to talk to the guy and tell him that I love that Kiwi SDR.
interesting report that came in on the chat from Stephen Wood. Stephen Wood is down on Cape Cod.
Okay.
And so he's out on the ocean. And you'll see his report there. Conditions seem a bit better today. I am getting small signals from Thailand on 9920.
Okay.
Zanzibar on 11735.
Okay.
And a good signal from Guinea on 9650.
9650. Okay.
But thunderstorms are
Yeah, I
threatening.
see it here.
Go
Yeah,
for it,
okay.
Eric. See if
Like
you
during
can get
yesterday's
Yeah.
show, somebody
Eric's
had
gonna
mentioned
start
that the
tuning
conditions
behind you.
weren't so good.
was the
Right
last
at
one?
2000, I looked at the
96.
magnetometer,
9650.
and things were going south.
Yeah.
You could see the magnetometer, and I said to Sheldon, well, yeah, it's 2000, and yes, conditions are going bad. But
You know, it's up and down conditions. Up and down conditions, pretty much.
we're heading towards minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. And a lot of people
We're almost-
quit listening
We're
because
pretty
they
much there.
figure there's not a lot on.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say one thing about that. If you turn off your radio and not listen for the next 6 years because it's solar minimum, might as well not turn it back on. Okay.
You're missing a lot. You're missing a lot. Medium wave, you can. That's some medium wave and long wave. Some amazing conditions for us when we're at solar minimum zeros.
And what's interesting also is you're west of us, so you're closer to the west coast of North America.
Mm-hmm.
You get different signals that are not propagating to us, the east coast also, or are much weaker here on the east coast.
Yeah, I was telling the guys this morning, listening to 1116 4BC out of Brisbane, Australia. And in wintertime, conditions are good to Australia. If we're not getting that solid, it's like, what's going on? We're only running about 17.5 kilowatt. So, alternatively, out here, you should be getting, you get Europe and African medium wave signals, and that's a treat for us. A real treat. I missed the, probably by now, the opening that Nigel and Don are getting for Transworld Radio out of, I think it was Benin. And I can't remember the frequency now. It's
That was the one like on a medium wave, like 1179 or something like that. But I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact.
I can't remember. I remember there's one that I see regularly, but
I think it's kind of a prime time to try to get them in the summertime.
yeah.
We'll be getting more into.
I miss the days of those the good DX that you could hear, and I remember waking up at 4 a.m. just to listen to some exotic stations from the Pacific area and stuff like that.
Well, apparently we were reading today that Tonga's got a new medium wave transmitter.
Oh.
So that's going to be a challenge for us.
Isn't that one? I saw something. Oh no, I saw one about a new Brazilian, like on 3365 or something. Very low frequency, a 90 meter band.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think it's what's coming from the shortwavelistening.com website.
Okay.
So there's definitely new stations that do pop up.
Oh yeah, apparently there's another Indonesian station somewhere in the 7 megahertz band that's just come back on, which I haven't been home to listen to yet, and so that'll be interesting to chase. There's some stuff coming back on, and some stuff we lose.
But what's at least interesting, we seem to be, because there was a period of time when we were losing a lot of stations. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I was just going to mention that we have 2 CIDX, longtime CIDX editors from the past that I haven't seen in many, many years that have come here. We'll let them jump in before they have to take off, and we'll come back.
Yep.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, come on, sit down.
Mike Brooker.
Mike Brooker.
No, not like Cory Booker, the senator
Toronto.
from New Jersey, who's a fake progressive and will likely run for president in 2020 and ain't going to get my vote. Anyway,
You got that?
I'm dual citizen.
okay, there you go.
Anyway,
Well, that explains, because I was like, well, you're from Toronto, you can't get the vote.
Yeah, you saw my post for Bernie Sanders in 2016, and you know how that went. Anyhow, good to see you all here. I've been a CIDX member since way back. I used to edit a column back in the days before the internet, and I'm actually still editing DDX Domestic DX Digest East in the NRC National Radio Club. So if you're an NRC member and you live in east of the Mississippi in the U.S. or in Ontario and any points east in Canada, send me your loggings.
Cool. What have you been listening to recently?
Well, not a lot.
So you're a big baseball fan because we're listening to the game.
I was listening to actually the Blue Jays game on the Montreal station, TSN 690 CKGM. And that just does not feel right. I mean,
it is.
I mean, I was an Expos fan since
I was an Expos fan too.
1969, first season in Montreal. The Expos were in the league before the Blue Jays. Blue Jays' first season was 1977.
Mike, you were talking a while back about all the baseball teams that used to be on the big 50 kilowatts across the US.
That's in fact how I got into DXing, was listening to the out-of-town baseball games and hockey games on the big 50 kilowatt blowtorches. I get the Cardinals and the Blues on KMOX 1120, Tigers and Red Wings on WJR 760. And even the Fort Wayne Comets on WOO 1190.
That was big.
WGN.
WGN. Well, WGN had been the Cubs' flagship for decades, since the 1920s. And just starting this year, they're the White Sox flagship.
There's something big. I remember in the 80s, listening, in the 90s, listening into the Expos baseball on 730 CKAC here in Montreal. They were, having all the games.
Their French flagship.
Yeah, and that was nice times. I don't know. There's something about radio and baseball that just fits.
It's a perfect sport for radio. Football, hockey, not so much. But there's a lot of time, like in between pitches and stuff, where the play-by-play host and the color man can banter and can share things and trivia and all kinds. And it moves at a slow pace. And it's just a perfect game on a summer night to listen on your porch, backyard. And that's the thing about KMOX, about all the Clear Channel blowtorches. They built up their fan base.
Yep.
There were Cardinal fans all over the Midwest, all over the country, because they picked up their games.
What are the radios or receivers you have?
Well, right now I have a C-Crane Skywave, very small, portable. It's very good on medium wave, and it's got shortwave and FM and the air band and the weather band. I highly recommend that radio.
Okay.
There's a non-SSB version, non-single sideband version that's costs quite a bit less if you absolutely don't need single sideband, which we don't. Just never listen to hams and. So I can't recommend that radio enough.
Okay. And
I have a 40-year-old Panasonic RF 2200. I just got it 40 years ago in the summer of 1978. And like pound for pound, that is the best medium wave portable around. And it's also very good on shortwave.
So you seem to be a fan of medium wave, a lot of medium wave DXing.
That's really where I do a lot of my DXing.
Okay.
I did some shortwave over the years, but really, what's left to listen to on shortwave? What is there in Canada, for instance, on shortwave besides CHU and CFRX 6070? And I even heard recently that there are plans to take WWV off the air.
Yeah, but like we were saying yesterday, and we were saying also last week, because Sheldon was mentioning how that happened last year too, but last year they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure as to how serious that is really.
Know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's maybe fear mongering, and the amount they would save.
Like Sheldon said, it would copy and paste from last year.
Yeah.
And, But
but a lot of countries have made good on their threat to kill shortwave. Radio Australia. I mean, for years, for decades, I would listen to them on 9580.
Well, that was the frequency of North America.
Yeah, and they're
even when they dropped the North American service, you could still get it.
Yep,
well,
9580 was amazing.
Then they killed shortwave completely.
It was. That was the For me, morning coffee and Radio Australia 95.80 go
Sometimes
together.
I'd listen to an Australian rules football game on.
Yeah. The only country music I ever listened to was Saturday morning or
Oh,
Saturday
yeah,
night
Saturday
country.
evening. Yeah,
I think it was the Sydney Swans and the Geelong Cats. That was like the Bears and Packers rivalry of the AFL.
I remember being amazed, like surprised they had like a. I don't remember what the time slot was, but I heard like 2-3 times, and they had a religious type show, like like spiritual.
Spirit
It's
of
more like
Things?
spiritual.
Was it the Spirit of Things?
I don't remember what the name of the show was, but I was like, oh, am I on 95.80? And I was like, yeah, it's Australia. I think it was on when it coincided with Sunday morning in Australia, probably.
It was like relaying the ABC, the domestic.
Yeah, that's
There
later.
were a lot of ABC Radio national programs that they put on Radio Australia, just like RCI back in the day would carry a lot of CBC Radio 1.
They were a perfect example of what shortwave brings to us also, because when they have their own service, I mean, how do you know what's happening in the Pacific Asia region? We don't hear nothing here in Canada about that at all. But you tune in, like right now there's Radio New Zealand that kind of replaces Radio Australia a bit, but it's not as, Radio New Zealand is not as easy to pick up.
Beautiful for me.
I haven't heard them in years.
Beaming right at 0 degrees, right through the heart of Edmonton.
I haven't heard Radio New Zealand in years.
Well, when you have half of Alberta on antennas, it's normal that you get these stations.
Yeah, and don't forget Toronto's pretty, static and noise.
But
right downtown.
And the Pacific Islands complained to Australia, or
Yep.
they want the
they'd like to have it back.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was Vanuatu. Or Papua New Guinea. They were asking Australia, bring back shortwave.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of the Pacific Islands want to have Radio Australia back because it's
chat in PNG about bringing back, but I'm not sure whether that's.
Yeah, I did see something about that. Yeah, Papua New Guinea having maybe something back.
We get Bougainville on a regular basis.
Anything else to add?
I think this is the last generation for DXers. I just cannot see anyone under 40, 50 getting into this.
You'd be surprised at the number of people here that show up regularly to the chat that are young and listening to shortwave. Some of them kind of for a while, and they're super happy because there's this thing on the internet now, on YouTube, this live show from this crazy guy in Montreal that actually talks about radio, and they're super happy to have that.
But yeah, and say, well, look, if there's an extended power outage, if there's some kind of natural disaster, or there's a, God forbid, there should be a war here.
Yeah.
First thing to go down is going to be the power grid and the internet.
Oh yeah, the internet.
And you won't be able to charge your trusty smartphone. You won't be able to Skype. You won't be able to Facebook. You won't be able to Instagram. But your radio will still work. A battery-powered or solar-powered radio will still work.
I'm trying to remember. Was it Turkey? I think it was Turkey. They had some political unrest, and people were on the streets, and they blocked all the social media.
I think it was Egypt
and
Tunisia?
There was also Egypt. Egypt did it, absolutely. And I mean, it just shows you that the government has the big on-off switch for internet. It's something that you can't do with a shortwave signal.
Well,
you can jam it, but
it's possible, but it's not very efficient or cost effective. I mean, God knows the Russians tried it.
Well, China's pretty good right now with their fire drakes and all.
China's everywhere.
Yeah. So, but I think there's still an audience. I think there are some young generation. The problem is, with the smartphones and everything, the technology we have in our pocket. A lot of what's happening is, I got a wasp that loves me. There's I hear a lot of people say, well, there's everything on my phone or on my computer, and it's like, it's not the same thing. It's not. It's what was interesting about the shortwave aspect also is the general.
Okay.
So
nice seeing you. It's good to be
it's
back
nice
in
to have you,
Montreal.
Mike. and take care and have a safe return back home.
Well, actually, I'll be in tomorrow.
Be on the show
On the show. Yeah, I just got the McGill studio.
So,
Here's Alan, another long time.
yes, we'll go through. You wanna join us?
Sure.
I remember who last year. There was somebody who was like, I just looked and it was
These
like,
are guys we haven't seen for. quite a
I just looked at one guy last year and I was like, please,
Oh,
don't do this.
doing it.
Being live.
Okay.
So just gonna say hi to a few people in the chat room that arrived. B, nice to have you on board. Says, could I please have you ask the gentleman next to you why is the XH Data D808 hard to get at a decent price in various countries? It's hard to get because I think they have a problem with the production. Because the XH Data, I wanted to purchase one to review it on my channel, and it was like $70, $75. And the time that I got to purchase, it was like $150, and I thought, well, okay, I'm not gonna pay that. So I think it's production issues. I think they're having a lot of problems just making them. Petro says that his wife calls him a nerd when he gets near the radio.
Radio, computers, whatever.
Yeah, William Helms from Florida. Hey there, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Have I missed anything? Just missed out here. Okay, Joshua, everybody's talking. So, okay, nobody new. If I missed your name, please say hi. Hey, Cosmic Lettuce. Nice to have you on board from southeastern Arizona. Pretty much it. So, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, my name is Alain Pepin. I was editor of the broadcast band column for CIDX from 1979 to 1994. I've gone on to do a lot of other things, and more recently flying. And perhaps that might be a way to introduce DXing to flyers, because I was on an instrument flight with an instructor, and I knew more about radio propagation than he did. So he said, how do you know all this stuff? Well, I turned the radio on, IDX medium wave, shortwave, everything, and then I made him a little demonstration. Night had fallen, and we had an hour-long flight from Quebec City to Montreal. Said, I can show you what an ADF can do. An ADF is the direction finder. It's an instrument for radio navigation using regular AM signals. Now the signals for aviation are on long wave.
Yep.
But the receiver itself can tune in all the way up to 1699 kilohertz, which covers the entire AM band.
Yep.
So I gave him a little demonstration. It was at night, it was during the fall. I said, here, 760. This is from Detroit. Really? WJR. See the needle? The needle points towards the southwest. And here's 770, WABC in New York.
Yep.
And then the needle goes a little further back and it points towards the south. So that's New York City. So you go to 780, WBBM Chicago. The needle once again points towards the west. Says, how do you know all this stuff? I used to be the editor of a broadcast band column which deals with long distance AM, FM, and TV reception. During the winter, medium wave works well. During the summer, you can have openings for VHF signals to go far. And this was explained in the course about radio navigation, but no one could really tell exactly what was going on. Said, well, it's influenced by the thunderstorms and the signals that are bounced off at the E layer sometimes, and you can have openings to different areas. Oh, that's why we have to listen to the Morse code when we're listening to a beacon on VHF.
Like the one we're hearing, the background.
Yeah.
On 410 kilohertz.
410?
It's like
Is that
407?
407 maybe, yeah.
407.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Who is that?
That's St. Hubert.
St. Hubert.
Au Bois.
We really know our frequencies. I was like 410. No, I think it's 407.
407. I know I use that frequency on an instrument approach. But anyway,
that's cool.
You'll be using instrument
And the
approaches.
people are, and once we got home, well, we each got into our cars and said, listen, you can listen to all those signals on your car radio.
It's surprising how a lot of people don't know that the AM band, because there's people that listen on the AM band on the daytime, and you get the local stuff.
Yes.
A little bit of a few stations like CFRA and Ottawa or stuff like that. But a lot of people don't know that once the sun sets, it's a whole new world on medium wave.
It's an entirely new ballgame. I know going to Toronto and back in the plane, I tune in all these 50 kilowatt stations that I can't really hear that well at home, but I can hear them very well in the plane. KMOX and WBT and WSB and WSM. I was with a country music enthusiast. I was having him listen to the Grand Ole Opry in the plane, and he was flabbergasted. This is live. This is really Nashville. Look, it's pointing to Nashville.
Yeah.
If you follow the needle, you'll end up in Nashville.
That's how you passed with honors, eh?
Oh yes, no problem.
People have no idea.
No.
It's amazing.
The same knowledge applies to different things. And I remember when I started fixing computers and going to people's home, and wireless routers started being popular. And people saying, well, I installed my router and I go to the next room and it doesn't work anymore. My signal doesn't get there. And it's like, well, we'll check the frequency, and you have this app. It's like, look, this is all the signals from all your neighbors. So I'm going to choose a different channel. And it's like, how do you know that? Well, I can tell you one thing, that you absolutely not learn when you follow a tech course. It's like you learn things about how computers and routers work, but not radio signals. And that's the radio side that lets you understand how to set up the router for the correct channel and stuff like that for interference. Okay, have you done any special medium wave DXing lately?
Medium wave was mostly in the winter time.
Okay.
In the winter time, you can get the South America, you can get Cuba and Mexico. During the summer, I tuned more into the FM band, and with the car radio, I had a few signals coming in, which do not usually come in, like Fort Pierce, Florida, which I was able to identify not because of the music they were playing, because it was playing NPR programming, but the little digital display in the car said WQCS. So I look it up. It's Fort Pierce, Florida. I had picked up that signal before.
That's nice. I haven't heard. I like to scan the medium wave bands from time to time, the AM band, for the fun of it. But I do have a lot of noise, so it's kind of difficult to DX. But I remember a long time ago when I could hear the heterodynes, the little tones coming from the fact that European signals are space-time kilohertz, so they're often a little bit off to our stations in North America, so it creates...
And once in a while you hear an audio popping in on the adjacent frequency.
I remember...
891.
I remember Norway, I think it was 13, 14, something like that.
14, right?
I remember that, and it was like, wow.
Back in Alberta.
Yeah.
Show off.
Right.
It's in the basement in a little box loop that like yours, and there's Norway.
Yeah.
I remember I went to Bonaire in the Netherlands Antilles for a diving expedition, scuba diving, and I visited Transworld Radio, and they gave me a loop antenna set for 800 kilohertz that they would distribute to their listeners in South America.
Oh, wow.
And I still have that at home, and it does work. And on 800, I did occasionally hear Transworld Radio, even though I'm within sight of the CJAD transmitter in Montreal.
I heard the 800 kilohertz signal from Transworld Radio Bonaire once, and it's because CJAD was doing maintenance, and it got off the air, and I thought, I'm gonna stay up. I think they were off the air like at 2 a.m. But I'm gonna stay up, and I'm gonna just see. I was not thinking of getting Bonaire, but I thought maybe there's some other 800 kilohertz station in the U.S.
There's a strong
Windsor. I know that
And-
in the airplane you get Windsor, Belleville, Montreal.
Yeah.
I was not expecting Bonaire. and it was Bonaire. I was Transworld Radio, and I heard the ID, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And of course, it's a one-time thing. I've never heard it, never again, especially with CJAD being there, and
From my location, which is southeast of here, I can know CJAD and still pick up Bonaire.
Wow, that's it. That's good. That's good. Wow. Okay. Any radio projects of any kind for the future, or?
I'm currently chasing the little 40-watt CBC relay transmitters with the airplane because there's very few of them left.
DXing with an airplane.
Yes.
That's an unusual thing. DXing with an airplane.
The last small transmitter I was able to chase was Lake Edouard. That is between La Tuque and the Chicoutimi area.
Okay.
It's not an area that you're going to go through by car. But I did make a little detour, and using the ADF receiver, I put it on 710 kilohertz.
That's
and
easy on the plane. Just do a little detour.
I start to hear the signals. Okay, it's coming in, and now the needle's pointing to it. And sure enough, I took a picture of where the radio signal was coming from, but there's no antenna that is visible there. But I learned later that the little CBC 40-watt relays, it's just like a clothesline between two posts.
Wow.
So that's why it didn't show up in the picture,
okay.
even though the needle was definitely pointing to that specific location.
So, are you telling me that if we hear of a plane crash, I'll be thinking of you and thinking, instead of looking where you're going, you were actually trying to get another 40-watt station somewhere?
He'll run into those
and I'm not,
cars.
I really am not saying that's going to happen.
Well, at the altitude that I fly, I will definitely know that something's wrong with the airplane, and I'll correct my course.
I'll say my goodbyes now.
All right.
All right, Alan.
Take care, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
Right.
Good seeing you
Have a
again.
good day. Have a good weekend.
Take care, Alan.
Yeah.
Let's get someone on who we've never had on before.
Oh yeah, why not?
We
Well,
have
we had
Alan.
we had Alain.
Another new person on.
And
We have
sure.
Beta. Come in and say a few words. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beta,
Thank you for being
Thanks,
over.
Alan. Beta does some broadcasting here in Montreal.
Now, every time I'll be listening to the air band and having a radio, I'll think of Alain. So,
Well, let's talk about Alain for a moment.
yeah.
I used to do a lot of ballooning out of Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu as a passenger. I think I've flown over your home more times than you would can imagine.
More times than I did myself.
Probably. And of course, we've also flown gliders, so we can talk about Cessnas and I think it was an L-19, I think it was, that we used as a tow
that's a
plane.
bird dog.
We used to use that as a
Cessna
tow
bird
plane.
dog.
And that was Andy Marquis. He told me up many times. He was the anchor of Channel 12's Pulse News, as they call it on CFCF radio. Hi, Jill.
Hello.
So,
a little bit of introduction.
introduction. Well, I'm a baby boomer, and got involved in radio listening to AM radio primarily.
Hey, Eric, you want to try 16180? It's a Cuban number station.
There we go.
16180.
I did get a
yes.
Cuban.
So I was DXing AM radio for a long period of time,
Okay.
and I used to make a habit if I was traveling, I would try and stop in and crash some of the radio stations before 9/11. That was
16180. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Are you through, Eric? May I continue?
Yes.
No, just kidding. Yeah, I used to crash radio stations. So some of the stations in Vermont and some of them down in Massachusetts. I went up to the Prue Tower. You guys from Massachusetts will be interested in knowing, and went up and saw the operation before traffic. And one of the guys excused himself. He said, "I make a mad dash between the start of the news, I think, and the end of the news. I run down the street, I cross Boylston Street, I pick up a sub or something, and I run back, and I try and get back before they say, and now the latest traffic report." And they had a few other people that were filling in for him. And of course, he used 7 different names, I think, for 7 different radio stations, including one of the, I guess it was I don't know whether it was WGBH or the WBUR, but I think they were doing one for one of the public radio stations in Boston. And I managed to spend some money in investing in some broadcasting stations and all, and then an opportunity arose to do some volunteer radio work at one of the Montreal community stations, CINQ-FM, Radio Centreville.
Okay.
And then got involved in doing some TV work with the Videotron cable out of the South Shore here, or as Sheldon would say, the East Shore, with the studio that they had in St. Hubert. And thanks to Sheldon, he taped a lot of the programs because it didn't cover the Montreal area, although they did do some rebroadcasting with CFCF, and I think it was National Cablevision and then CF Cable before they became part of the CTV network.
Okay.
And then subsequently some broadcasting work out of CJRS, Radio Shalom here in Montreal, a Jewish station, and we were doing the Jewish Comedy Hour, and also at Radio Centreville I was doing a Comedy Crackers program,
Okay.
name, and a consumer program, and also a program for the amateur photographer. So I was covering all the bases there, and or at least many of the bases. A lot of this was pre-digital time in photography, of course. I remember vividly, and I think I still have the tape, we were talking about the instant camera. This was the one where you bought a camera,
Instant camera.
the film was already in there, you spend $10, you could take 24 pictures, and you can have them developed, and some people are saying, oh, it's not going to work, it will work, and so on. And of course, soon after that, it evolved into the digital cameras.
Digital cameras, yeah.
Currently, I listen to a lot of stuff off of TuneIn Radio, so I'm listening around the world, but I'm not using shortwave.
Okay.
And I bought the TuneIn Radio Pro that cost me one-shot deal. I think originally was only a couple of dollars.
Okay.
Then I somehow lost the service owing to resetting of the phone, and so I bought it again only because I was going back and forth with them. They wanted me to show how I purchased, what I purchased, like the day, the hour, the time. And I couldn't produce all the information. So for $10, I bought it again. And I frequently listened to Taiwan radio and Cape Town and New Zealand radio and several other stations around the world. And I don't have the problems of shortwave.
Yeah, it is different.
I do have a couple of shortwave receivers, but nothing beyond the more amateur radios that barely pick up more than noise.
Okay.
And of course a number of better AM radios, like the GE Super Radio, I think was one of them.
Oh yeah,
I think I ended up with 3 of those.
I got the third one. I got the Super Radio 3.
Yeah. So that's in a nutshell a little bit of my background testimony.
Radio. There's a lot of stuff on tuning radio too, of course.
Yeah.
But I purchased a Sangean Wi-Fi radio about 5 years ago, and it cost me like $300 for a box that is on a shelf doing nothing.
I think we all have something like that somewhere in the house.
It was kind of cool, the first week. It's like, oh wow, look at that, and just go by country or by genre or whatever. And after like a month, it's like, well, it's there. It's nice. It's a $300 clock.
And it's always flashing 12.
Well, actually, it's not well made. It doesn't synchronize automatically with DSD. So half of the year, it's an hour off.
I thought you were going to say it flashes 2,500.
Okay, so what would be your favorite listening on TuneIn? Anything special you?
Yeah, I listen to some of the music. I guess I'm more interested in news than I am in pure music. My music interests are pretty broad, but nothing extra serious. So I'll listen to the old jazz music. I'll listen to, in fact, coming in, I was listening to some music from one of the fellows at the radio station, that it was music of the 1940s and 50s, I think.
Okay.
and like Pat Boone, I guess from the '60s possibly, and Guy Mitchell and a few of the other ones, as opposed to listening to Drake, say, or
Yeah.
Lady Gaga's music. But there's some of the tunes I enjoy, but a lot of the material is probably from the 70s and the 80s, and a lot of the 90s is just went by me just like that, flash. And my memory's failing. So.
Most of if I look on my internet listening on things like TuneIn Radio, okay, there's a few shows, there are a few things that sometimes I want to tune in through there, like the BBC News Hour, for example, stuff like that I'll pick up from there because it's easy, you get it easily. But most of what I do when I'm on even on my Wi-Fi radio will be 98% of the time it's going to be listening to some music station, from the 80s or, Super Duran Duran, 24 hours.
I knew that was going to come. Inside joke.
But I listen to Cape Talk and at least ICRT out of Taiwan. This was the old Armed Forces radio station way back when.
I actually listened to Cape Talk 567 on my Wi-Fi radio a few times. Huh. Okay.
I think a bunch of people are waiting for something today. Went over very well last year.
Okay.
There's not very many women involved in this.
No, absolutely not.
And we were fortunate enough last year to have a couple with us.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Amanda is not here this year, but Janice is here. And we haven't mentioned pirate radio once today.
Nope.
I have a feeling that we might be hearing something about pirate radio in a couple minutes.
So that could
just
be quite
one
interesting.
comment for our fellows from Boston.
Yes.
I was listening to an old aircheck radio station rebroadcast from the 70s or the 80s, and it featured Robin Young, and now she's involved at I guess WBOR or WGBH, and she's on NPR locally between I think it's noon and say 3 o'clock, and her voice hasn't changed much, but from a regular disc jockey to an interviewer of serious political material, she is very good. A very, very, very pleasant voice. Reminds me of listening to Fresh Air with Terry Rose. Anyhow.
Cool.
All right.
Are there others
Thank
that
you.
want to sit in?
We'll bring in
We'll bring in
Janice.
Janice.
Okay.
Jill, maybe
Thank you very much.
You can catch up on the chat room.
Yeah,
while
absolutely.
we're
That's what I'll
switching
do.
here.
There was not a lot of new, but there was a
Thanks,
few people,
Peter.
so thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I couldn't hear some of the stations there.
Yes,
No.
on 11-860 we didn't hear Yemen, we heard Spanish. We think
Probably Radio
It's-
Havana.
it's
no,
the Cuban Yemenis.
It's 11860's Radio Martin Avenue frequency.
Now, who was hearing Yemen on? What were they hearing Yemen on?
I don't know, somebody was hearing Yemen.
I wonder who they heard Yemen.
But
If Yemen was in Spanish, it was not Yemen,
Yeah, it
by the
wasn't
way.
Yemen. At least not here it is.
But I was
Or maybe in
hearing.
the UK.
But I was hearing the tones from the HMO1 Cuban numbers,
okay.
but no voice track.
No voice track. Okay. It happens sometimes. A couple of weeks ago, I could hear the digital thing, but there was no numbers.
Yeah,
So-
they sometimes broadcast digital.
So, Gilles, when are you coming down to the Winterfest?
Yeah, I need to do that.
We
I
had so much
know,
fun.
I know.
Here's a picture of Mickey in the back of the van.
You're too close, probably.
No.
No? You're good?
So there's Mickey in the back of the van.
Okay.
That's what happens when she plays you out.
Well, you got a picture of me too,
How
Scrap.
about our,
Oh yeah, and here's the pee break on the side of the road.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, this is what
Perfect.
happens when you bring a YL
That
along
is
with you, right?
perfect.
Objects may appear larger in the mirror.
Okay, well here's a good one. I hope you can see this. Here's Sheldon with the
Okay.
headlamp on as the
the Grim Reaper.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Because at the hotel in Philadelphia we had a power outage for a
Yeah.
couple of days, so
Yeah.
Sheldon had a headlamp on as he was giving his talk.
but we couldn't take advantage of the quiet noise conditions.
Yes, that's true. But we had a great time.
But you know what? Let me work it out. I'm
How many
going to try to
viewers
make
do we
it.
have?
We're at 84 right now.
Oh, it's going up there.
84.
Very good.
So we had no electricity, so Eric and I foraged for food at, what was it, Zoe's Kitchen across the way?
Zoe's Kitchen had power.
So I got the family meal, and there we are eating our family meal at the table.
And we ate very well.
We ate very well.
You were the
We got
envy
Mediterranean
of the-
food.
We need to tell the listeners what Winterfest is, though.
Yes.
Well, I got their interest now. Like, what is this road trip? Janice in a van with a bunch of guys. We pile in the van. We head down to
no
Philadelphia
electricity.
for the weekend.
Yeah, sounds kinky.
It's the SWL Winterfest. Look under swlfest.com, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
And it's sponsored by what? NASWA.
NASWA, North
And
American Shortwave Association.
It's like a 3-day event in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia, in Plymouth Meeting. We have a great time, and everything radio imaginable, from shortwave, medium wave, all kinds of stuff, satellite radio, pirate radio, scanners. If one were to know, all kinds of stuff goes on there.
Coming up February 28th, 2019.
February 20,
February
2019.
28th, okay.
So come on down, get in the van.
Right.
We have a good time.
I need to work it out.
You don't have a van anymore? What have you got?
Car now.
White car in front of the house.
And so do I have a white car. Have you seen mine?
No. Have you seen mine?
Okay, well we'll look at each other. Have you seen mine?
Only when we stop our
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
All right.
Okay, to be continued.
Imagine
Be like,
someone just reaching the stream at that exact moment.
okay, that'll be like, Jill, get up with the camera and see what they're doing.
Everybody's running out to buy shortwave radio now.
Okay, I've been a member of the club since, what, 1990, 91?
I think so, yeah.
91, so that's what, 27 years?
Yeah.
You've known me 27 years, Sheldon.
You're not
Murphy.
that old, girl.
Sweet Jesus.
Just 27 Celsius.
I like the metric version better. I'm not giving away my age, but I was just a wee thing when I showed up at the CIDX meeting
And shocked all of the male audience in the
I
room.
would guess.
and said, "Are you in the right place?"
We thought you were in the wrong meeting.
Yeah, I was looking for the yoga class, the knitting room. No, I was in the right place, and I wrote down everything.
Yes.
And who was it? Who was it used to give the talks about all the complicated stuff? No, and I used to write down everything he said. Not Michel Mathieu, no. The other French fellow.
Oh my.
I've got menopause now.
I don't
I'm getting
remember.
old. Anyway, I used to write down
never
everything
forget
you
what's his
guys
name.
would say, like, if I wrote. And we had the radio conference there, and I'd sell tickets. And
Why?
Oh.
Why aren't there more women that do this?
Yep. We want to know.
Yes.
You must have the answer to that.
Yeah, but it's like one of those gender things, like why were there fewer women doctors back in the day? Why were there fewer women? Because science was always a domain that was kind of gender biased, and it was always one of those domains that was predominantly men. Like the job that I work on, there were 5% women when I started. We're up to 35% women, but there's certain professions that were dominated by men, and there's certain hobbies that have been dominated by men, and others by like how come there's not more men in quilting clubs or cooking classes or whatever?
You can count me out.
Admit it.
Yeah, but these places were not, science and stuff were places that weren't, women weren't allowed into science programs in school.
Female
We're encouraged
airline
to go into
pilots.
science. Women were considered. I mean, remember when we had home ec and you guys in high school had shop?
We had industrial arts.
You had industrial arts, and I had home economics. I learned how to sew, which I still can't sew. I still can't cook. I burn things, but
But you learned how to turn on a radio.
I can build a dipole. I can turn on a radio. I've got more radios than most people I know. And,
I think last year was kind of saying that you should help me out with my antennas.
oh well, there you go. You need help erecting something? You need help with your erections? What, dipoles or slopers or inverted V's? What kind of erections are you
I
want
knew
help
this.
with?
We're talking about antennas.
Of course, we're talking about erecting antennas. I've helped lots of gentlemen in the club with their
Erecting antennas.
erections.
You know when you're
Antennas.
saying a phrase live in front of the studio of the audience, and you're like, while you're saying the phrase, you're like, well, this is gonna go wrong.
Yeah, well, this is why. This is why.
I'm hot now.
As Sheldon says, I'm one of the boys in the club. I'm more foul-mouthed and crazy than half you guys are, so I'll shock them.
And by the way, we have a woman in the chat room. Jane Dagger just
Hey, Jane,
arrived.
what's up?
Jane is there.
What's up, girl?
So, you're not alone.
I'm not alone. That's good.
We've had some very famous lady DXers though over the
Yeah.
years in CIDX and other clubs.
Okay, there's a picture of me in front of Radio Romania in Bucharest. Oops.
Oh, yeah, you posted some.
Yeah, I posted some pictures on my Facebook of it. Went to Bucharest. Well, I went to the Ukraine, went to the border zone. It was fun because in the lobby they had all these displays at Radio Romania. But then we got chased out by, where is he? This security guard.
Oh, really?
This security guard who didn't like us taking pictures in the lobby. So I got chased out of the lobby of Radio Romania in Bucharest. But I mean, what I do, my big thing in the radio is I did a couple of columns called Radio on the Road. I do the forum at the SWL Fest conference in Philadelphia every 2 years.
Jane says, whoever you are, miss, you are awesome.
Yeah.
We
Go
agree.
girl.
You went to the radio cafe.
Yeah, went to the radio cafe. So Radio on the Road is when I travel. I'm now up to 91 countries. And I listen to local AM and FM and I DX shortwave from the country I'm in. So my latest recordings were from the Azores and Cape Verde. I have recordings from Belarus, Bulgaria, Romania, all over the world. And then what I do is I take pictures of radio stations, antennas. I visit all kinds of places and I record recordings. And then I do a presentation with all the snippets of the different radio recordings I've made from where I am. So this solves the problem with the DX. Like, I go get on a plane and go to the place. I want to hear Radio New Zealand. I'm going to fly to Wellington. I'm going to fly to New Zealand to hear them.
Yes, Dark Noise in the Netherlands. Female blondes into shortwave DXing, absolutely.
Yeah, so I do stuff like this. Like, here's my DX398. Oops. Now, there's the RDS on my DX398 when I was in the Azores and Cape Verde. So I photograph it, take pictures of that, which I do in the PowerPoint for my presentation. I think I have one of the car radio. There's one of the car radio in the Azores when I was traveling around near Ponta Delgada.
This is really cool.
So, yeah, I just gave a copy. I can download it onto your computer if you want. I have my USB.
Oh, cool.
I do I have like a big raw recording of AM, FM band scans, shortwave band scans for these countries, and then I take out interesting snippets and interesting commercials, and I put together a montage of that with some video. And I went to Albania, and I'm driving around the hills of Albania in this rental car, this Citroën C2, and it's like driving in a rally, and I've got some Albanian like folk music blasting on the radio, and it's like crazy driving. I videotaped the whole thing while I'm driving, and it was the end of a 2,200 kilometer road trip by myself through Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, Slovenia, and Croatia. And so I play these snippets. So for a lot of the DXers, especially at the fest, who maybe for whatever reason can't travel to these places themselves, I travel on your behalf. So if you want to hear a really obscure radio station, let me know. I'll get on a plane, I'll fly over there, I'll visit the antenna, I'll visit the station, I'll record it, I'll do whatever you want, and I'll bring it back. So I bring back the live recordings from local stations. Like I heard a little farm radio station in Arusha in Tanzania.
Wow.
And that's not online, and that you can't do anywhere else. No. You have to physically be within listening distance of the station to hear them.
That's cool.
So that's my thing, is traveling and listening to radio and recording radio stations.
That's really cool.
When I travel.
Stephen Wood in Cape Cod is telling us he has to leave, but he's getting ready to go out for dinner.
Oh, enjoy.
But
have
he does
fun.
say, everyone have a great time and hope to see us at the fest again next year. So.
We'll see you, Stephen.
Hope to be there. I'll try everything I can to be at the Winterfest.
Oh, the Winterfest was great. Amanda Don Christie, she played what is it? Spectres of Radio.
Spectres of Shortwave.
Spectres of Shortwave. There's a picture from the film, which is about the towers in Sackville coming down.
Yeah.
It was very emotional for all us Canadians. She played it, and it's an amazing movie. I'm not going to say much more, but we were all crying, and that was something. She was down there, and thanks again to Amanda for coming down and airing that at the fest. But the Winterfest was great. What else have I done? Azores, Cape Verde, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova. Went to Transnistria, which is an odd little country, and listening to Transnistria radio.
Oh.
Yeah, which is one of those rogue states that's gone back with Russia. It's part of Moldova, but I found out why Moldova doesn't come in and take them back over, because there's like 2,000 Russian soldiers there.
Okay.
But Chisinau was cool. I got a new travel tattoo. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. There's my tattoo. See the little airplane? Yeah, I got another tattoo number 4. So I'm a radio chick with 4 tattoos and been to 91 countries and
I think that's
3 UN
kind of a
missions.
first on the show.
And I can run 10K. You want to see the other one?
We're going to switch to black and white now.
Jill wants to keep his channels.
See, I keep these boys on their toes. You know, we keep them laughing, keep them
I hate
awake.
to tell you this, Janice, but the numbers are dropping.
Hi guys. You should have had me on at the beginning of the show. No, I've scared them all away.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm going to show my tattoos now.
All right, now showing tattoos on Jill's show. We've gone way off topic.
Boy, the rails have derailed.
Which is Jill's show in general. I move, everywhere in that.
Well, that's me too. I'm all over. Went to the Near Fest. Went down and visited John Fisher down in North Chelmsford. What town was the Near Fest in, John?
Oh, Near Fest was in
Deerfield,
New
Hampshire.
Deerfield, New Hampshire.
It's a twice-a-year flea market, amateur radio related.
Yeah, it's
October
a ham
12th, I
radio. It's a
believe
big
that's
radio flea market. There I saw Tim Tron of WBCQ at the Near Fest. We had a great time there.
Viennese in love with you.
And Wolfie of the Wolfnet. John, what's Wolfie's name?
His name is Brian. His call is WO1VES.
Okay,
Wolves.
now look up really close because those fangs are real. He's had like fangs, implants on his teeth. The guy really has fangs. He's got
Real
fangs.
nice guy, though.
But he's a sweetheart, and he knows a lot about radio.
It's one of the dangers of being near too much RF.
And there's with Chris Lobdell and John and Andy Wallace and myself at the Near Fest. So, I don't know. I love the radio hobby. I love everybody in the radio. You're all my brothers and my family. And my life has been so much better having you guys in it. And I can't say how much I'm able to just be me, you know. We're all a bunch of weird radio nerds and radio freaks, and we have a good time. And,
I think we're all happy to have you also in the hobby. It's kind of fun, you know.
Yeah, but we have a great time and we laugh our asses off. And I don't know, for all of us, this is maybe, I don't see anybody's wives or girlfriends here. Except for maybe Darlene, who's a tolerant soul.
She's hiding inside the house away from us.
But you know what?
She just closed the door.
These weird little quirky hobbies we have, this is, you know, part of our true selves and who we really are and our real passions.
Yeah,
and that we're able to share this with each other.
Well, you know, this is such, in general speaking, this is very solitary activity that we do. And it's things like this and Winterfests and Hamfests and things like that that bring people together that have common interests. And you know, that's what what your show, Jill, is doing, to let some of these people meet other people who do the same thing that they do. And, you know, sometimes it's not easy. I mean, we're seeing people from all over the world that are checking in here every Friday or Saturday. And, it's a world community out there, and it's been made a lot smaller by activities like this.
Absolutely. And, you know, we have names of people that we hear over years of, you know, in bulletins or in radio shows, and then suddenly you have that person showing up, or you could see, you know, even in the chat room, some people have their own picture and profiles.
Right.
So you sometimes can have a little glimpse of, you know, who they are, and it's fun. You know, it's fun to see that we're actually just a great gang and having fun with radio.
Well, everybody come to the SWL Fest in Philadelphia at the end of February. I'll meet you all there. Come in person, and you know, we have a lot of fun. So as much as it's a solitary hobby, you're amongst kindred spirits, amongst people like yourself, and we don't judge each other, and we all have fun together. So, you know,
I'll be checking it out because one of the things I'd like to that what probably would be a lot of fun is you know, I could go there and set up maybe a live show from
oh yes, that would be fantastic.
Winterfest. I think that'd be very, very cool.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, you want to hear from John Fisher?
Does anybody remember Spectrum?
The blue ham guy.
Oh yes.
Spectrum used to broadcast live from the.
Thank you, Janice.
Yes, you're welcome, sweetheart.
Janice,
Thank you for showing your tattoo.
Come on,
John, talk to John Fisher.
You should take a few minutes to
we'll say
catch up and to promote support for you.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to say Free Saxon, hello there in the UK. Matt, UK, nice to have you here. Dark Noise in the Netherlands. We have so Jane Dagger, of course, we said hello. Anybody I missed? Say hello if I haven't said anything to you. Super 20 Dan, hello there. Nice to have you here. What else do we have in our chat? 3830 Radio Man that has one comment. Sexy.
Obviously not talking
Rock
about
the
me.
tech guy.
And Jill, they're encouraged. Some of the people in the chat that we know are encouraging you to come to Winterfest.
Yes.
No, you must go.
Yes. Rock the tech guy says any schematic tattoos. Manny CB, nice to have you here. Alessandro, Florin, nice to have you on board. Chris Lobdell says, Jill, come to the fest. Yeah, I know. Dark Noise says, question for Janice. How does your surrounding, like neighbors, family, and friends, react to your hobby with DX listening and radios?
Janice?
Janice?
You're being asked a question.
I'm not repeating. So, question from Dark Noise is, how does your surrounding, like neighbors, family, and friends, react to your hobby with DX listening and radios?
They think I'm a freak, like the rest of us. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They have no idea. I have over-the-air TV. I cut off my cable 5 years ago.
Oh, that's why
And
they're
they
saying.
don't even understand why I did that. And I tried to explain it to them. And it's over the heads of most people. Like all of you out there listening, you know.
There's been at least 4 comments of nice T-shirts.
Oh yeah,
The,
this is my Chris,
Shortwave Fest.
Chris Lobdell makes these T-shirts for the Winterfest every year. So usually John Fisher and I wear the Winterfest T-shirts.
That is nice.
Except
So-
I forgot mine.
You
But I'm,
still got yours.
but I'm wearing a nice shirt anyway.
Oh yeah, you got a shirt on Cap Verde. But none of my family actually no, the only family that understands my radio hobby is my older brother. He's the one who gave me my Lafayette HA600A, which was a radio built in 1967, and back in 1972, when I was 7 years old, there I know my age, I started listening to shortwave with my older brother. Now my older brother is a genius. He's got like 160 IQ, so he's the only one in the family who understands shortwave. And he was the one with which I listened to Radio Moscow, Radio Vancouver. But I was forbidden to touch the radio. So of course I coveted it. I wanted that radio so bad. And when I was in my 20s, he gave me the radio. And that's how I got back into the hobby. And I found, Communications World I was looking for at Radio Lorenz. And I found the application for CIDX. The rest is history.
Wow.
Talk to John about his QSL collection.
Oh, no.
How many ham QSLs
nobody
are you up
wants to
to?
hear that.
He's up to 800 and some odd ham QSLs.
Okay, we're going to get to that in 2 seconds. Hey, Gary Horman in Tokyo. Nice to have you here. Jane Dagger, that comment is, I don't know if I should say it. She says she's got a bad tattoo, very old, done by a guy named Dirty Dick. And she ends with, it's not a joke.
Who did it? Dirty Dick. I'll look that up. Very back tattoo.
Want to see that tattoo?
Oh, man.
Do pilots send QSL cards?
You could from yourself.
Oh,
my God.
What else? Anybody else that I've missed? Patrick Manny, hello there. Nice to have you here. So we pretty much have everybody. Jose in Panama, nice to see you. And it was nice to see you when you were in Montreal, by the way. Hello, John.
Hey, Joe.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
It's always nice to see you. So, you have a big QSL collection from what I hear.
Oh, well.
We'll be there tomorrow.
Well, on shortwave, if people must know, on shortwave, I don't know, I have 210 countries verified.
210.
And I don't know, maybe it's over 1,000. And medium wave, I have 53 countries verified.
53 on medium wave.
And
Wow.
ham radio, I've
I've
got
got 2.
around-
I've got Canada and US.
And the ham radio thing, I've got, I don't know, it's over 820, something like that. But
Wow.
I just like them. One thing about the QSLs, and this is something anybody with a shortwave radio can do, is send a report and a letter to your favorite radio station, because
Yeah, absolutely.
there are lots of them that are getting cut. And just for example, Radio Romania International, if you send them one report for 12 months, you'll get a frameable certificate. And then if you
This is nice.
keep doing it,
Okay.
in another 3 years, you'll get another certificate. And then in 5 years, you'll get a another certificate. So I'm working on my 5th year now. So and the QSLs are beautiful. There's no return postage involved. Just send them a letter. I don't send them over the internet because then they'll think I'm listening on the web. I'm not listening on the shortwave transmitter. It's the shortwave transmitter that we want to preserve. So any shortwave station that's on the air that you like, right,
absolutely.
Because it can make a difference.
We were talking about that earlier. I was talking about All India Radio that is actually rethinking its shortwave service right now. I mean, if you love All India Radio, if you listen to All India Radio, you have to send them a letter or an email. Let them know you're listening, because the only way you keep these stations on the air is that they know there's an audience.
Yeah, they think there's nobody listening. They're gonna,
I remember
pull the plug.
A statistic from the early '90s that I don't know where I've heard it, but they were mentioning that of all the people listening, there were like, just 2 or 3% of these people that were actually writing in. Yeah. That 95% plus of listeners never write. And never let the station know that they are actually there on the radio.
And it's the same with a lot of talk shows. They say maybe, like you just said, maybe 4%, 3% are the ones that actually call in. And
you have the impression when you have a call-in show, you have the impression that the same women and the same guys call in like almost every night.
Yeah, that does happen, because on some shows that I have listened to, I've heard some of the same people over and over again.
I particularly like WBCQ because there's so few people calling that now they're calling them by their first name every time somebody's on the phone line.
But it's, if you listen to a station, sometimes it's not that hard to get through. I called WBZ a couple of times and I got through fairly quick. It was relatively painless. So, if the announcer says I've got open lines, go for it. And
Well, people are shy, It's
it's not. It's just like talking to somebody on the telephone. You don't even think about it.
You guys are gonna laugh at me. There was a station here in Laval, which was on 1570. I don't remember what the call sign was. And they had in the evening a show where you could call in and ask for your favorite song. And all I can say is that I called in. I remember calling in to ask for Michael Jackson "Beat It." And I was totally scared on the phone because my voice was on the radio. It was like, man.
Well, one of the times I called WBZ, and then I'll get back to the shortwave stuff. My brother was down in Worcester, Massachusetts, driving home from a hockey game, and he heard my call. And, of course, he called me up. I heard you on the radio, and then years before that, I was driving home from work listening to WRKO, and a certain Sheldon from the Montreal area called, and he referenced something that I knew that he was that had to do with something with me, and I almost drove off the road. I was laughing so hard. So, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Matambali, 11860 is Radio Marti from the United States. It's not Radio Vancouver. Sorry.
Yeah. New frequency.
New frequency for Radio Marti. I got fooled too when I was doing my walk in the park videos. I was like, what's that? Radio Vancouver?
Oh, I've gotten fooled before too. So it does happen.
But there is a difference. They're like, they have that Spanish. They have like a speed when you talk in Spanish on Radio Marti that is not the same speed as Radio Vancouver.
Yeah, some
but
stations
a little more relaxed.
Have a certain sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can kind of tell sometimes Radio Havana's sound from Marti's more polished.
It's like Radio Romania.
Sound.
You listen to 3 different language services. It's the same women.
Yep.
And you're like, well, it's Radio Romania. How do you know?
They're trilingual.
It's the same women. It sounds Radio Romania.
But I still belong. We still have in the Boston area shortwave club, BADX, Boston area DXers. So I want to say hello to all the BADXers.
Is that there's a lot of members? Is it going well?
The club is still doing okay. There's not as many show up as used to, but we still have. Generally, we still have monthly meetings, and we get together, have a good time, and so wherever you live, if you find there's a shortwave club, join it. Same with the amateur radio. If there's an amateur radio club in your area, join it, because you'll make friends. You'll get to meet people, interesting guest speakers, and I know with the ham radio part of it, one of the hams I talked with used to work at HCJB, volunteer there, and he was also, unfortunately, much to his regret, had to help take down the transmitters, but he took all sorts of pictures, and he gave this talk to BADX, the Shortwave Club, and then later on he gave the same talk to the Bill Rickett Amateur Radio Society, of which I belong to, and he gave them the same talk, and so it's all, the hobbies all dovetail very nicely with each other.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you don't have your license, go for it. If you've got a CB radio, ham radio,
I gotta get my license. Everybody's telling me get your license.
Push the talk button. Turn your radio on. I know the noise levels are atrocious, but you can still find things. And just as an example, I live in a condo. The noise levels are terrible, unbelievable. I can't have an outdoor antenna. But on the ham radio, last week, in fact, I heard the station calling and made contact with the station in the Orkney Islands, in Scotland. So that was a lot of fun. And like I said, shortwave, I'm still going after the QSLs for Radio Romania for the diploma.
So Radio Romania. So you send them every month?
Yeah, one report a month. You get a beautiful QSL, and at the end of the first year, like I said, you'll get a certificate. Then
I didn't even know.
Yeah, a couple more years later, you'll get another certificate, and then after 5 years, you get, I guess you'd call it the old timer certificate.
Oh yeah. But you know what? It reminds me of the 80s. There were so many of these stations that
they
you
used
could
to do
send them a certain number. I remember getting one from Radio Budapest.
Yep.
I got a diploma from Radio Budapest in Hungary for sending I don't know how many reports. And I was at the post office the other day.
Yeah.
And I remember that when I was sending letters back then, it was like 64 cents per stamp, international.
64.
And,
I remember it was 15 cents. So there you go.
and I just looked today at the price of a stamp, which is $1 something.
Yeah, in the States, it's $1.15 now.
And I was like, wow, it would cost me a fortune to just send the same amount of letters I was sending back then. I remember going to the post office with like a pile of letters. And one day, because always the same girl, one day she looks at me and she said, can I ask you a question? Yeah. Where are these letters all going to? Because I see you every week with your pile of letters. And I told her with, QSLing and radio stations on shortwave and so on. And she was like, wow, okay.
I used to get that from our mailman delivering the mail to the house. And one time I was there, opened the door when he was dropping the mail in the box, and he said to me, I've never delivered this many letters from so many different countries to the same house. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, why are you getting all these envelopes from all these strange countries?
Well, when I walk into the post office, I walk in there in the Monday morning, and the guy behind the counter points at me, and he goes, "We're watching you."
I guess we all, especially old timers, we've been writing, for a long time, and we've been writing to Eastern Bloc countries and so on. There must have been some file somewhere in Ottawa with our name on it.
I'm sure.
I'm pretty
in
sure.
The States too. It wouldn't surprise me. But the way I look at it, no matter what phase of the radio hobby you're in, be it amateur radio, shortwave, DXing, medium wave, DXing, CB, police scanning, whatever, it's all radio and it's all good. And everybody, keep your interest up in it.
God bless, he says. I've always had hard time cashing in IRCs at the post office. I always had a hard time having them understand what an IRC is all about.
I know that feeling, exactly. Yeah.
And actually, I got a donation this week by a guy in the state of New York, and he sent me an international postal money order because he doesn't use the electronic stuff. And I got there, and the guy looked at it and said, "We can't cash this here." And I said, "Yeah, it's a postal money order. You're supposed to exchange it." And she says, "No, you have to go to the bank." No, the post office. And I don't want to go to the bank because they're going to look at it and say, "Hey, you'll get your money in a month." So
bureaucracy, you gotta love
he
it.
went back, and there was this guy, and it was so funny because there's the door, and the other guy was like, And they were talking, and the guy did another one, and he came back, said, well, okay, we're going to call the number and just verify things and so on. And it's like, okay, I don't know. Anyways, out of the subject, one of the things that you just said before we moved away was about the amateur bands. And one of the things that also I want to say is, if you have a shortwave radio, don't stay stuck within only one listening habit, international broadcast. Listen to the amateur bands. It's a lot of fun, and I actually have a lot of fun DXing countries on the amateur bands.
Yeah, and another thing to do, and I may have mentioned this, I forget who I've mentioned it to, but there was one winter where I went after, on the east coast of North America, I went after all the Canadian maritime weather stations that are on shortwave. And there's a bunch of them, and I got some great QSL letters. Some of them had cards. All very nice letters. I got a Canadian Coast Guard pen, some stickers, QSL cards, and each one of them seemed very grateful that there was someone out there listening. So that's another tack you can do. And I've done the same. I've QSL Bermuda weather radio on shortwave.
You know, they are happy.
They're out there.
I actually posted a YouTube video of me listening in to the Virginia maritime weather broadcast, and got a very beautiful email from somebody that actually works there. Said, hey, I'm a ham radio operator. I love your channel, and I saw that you were listening to the weather broadcast and everything. And he sent me a PDF of all the information about the station. It was like, he was kind of happy. He was like, oh, it's cool to see that a hobbyist is actually listening in.
John, you should tell everyone your call sign in case people want to
yes.
into you on the air.
Yeah, I'll give it phonetically. My call sign is Kilo Charlie 1 Foxtrot Tango Juliet. That's KCU and FTJ. And if you're a radio hobbyist and you hear me, send me a report and I'll send you a QSL card.
You work all the bands?
Yeah, I work most of the bands. There's some because of noise levels that are very difficult. But you can, when I'm on, you can probably hear me on 40, 20, 17, 10 meters. Those are the ones I kind of inhabit when the noise isn't as
pretty active. Or
yeah, several times a week. On the weekends sometimes.
Anything you've heard recently that you're amazed?
Well,
it was cool.
On the ham bands was Orkney Islands. Another one was Isle of Man. And then there was one that had a shortwave connection. Chris Lobdell and I both heard ham from the U.S. Virgin Islands. And Chris worked the ham, and then right after I threw my call out. And so then that gentleman heard me after he had worked Chris. And come to find out it was James Latham, who used to run Radio for Peace International from Costa Rica.
Oh, wow.
So again, like I said before, it was a combination of the two hobbies dovetailing in with each other. So that was really neat.
You got Matambali that says, do you do digital PSK stuff like that? No digital at all?
No digital. No.
Okay.
I'm kind of old school.
So you got to talk to the guy. You can't just type on the keyboard.
Yeah, no, my father was a ham, my grandfather was a ham, and my other grandfather was a ship's wireless operator in the 1920s. So I guess, I got it in my blood. Radio in my blood.
For sure, there is this. This is the dangerous dog.
We don't have Paul.
We don't have Paul the cat here. So.
We have Killer the dog.
Killer the dog.
My friend Killer. Killer loves me.
And of course, it's a small dog.
Yes, naturally.
Yes, Brett, they gave me the money in U.S. funds. Actually, I had to tell him because he was giving me the funds in Canadian. I was like, well, it's U.S. dollars. It should be the same amount.
Okay, Rock the Tech Guy, I like the idea of the schematic tattoo, but the schematic of which radio? Guys, take a vote, please. I found the schematic for the DX398. It's a little complicated. It would take up a lot of flesh.
Oh, man.
But, let's take votes of the schematic of which shortwave radio should I tattoo on me next.
DX100, it's simple.
Speaking of radios, we have Eric is here with his
That's right.
Yes, and
So
thank you
let
so
me-
much,
let
John.
me vacate.
Bring the
Jill,
30 with
nice seeing you again.
Always nice to see you too.
And you've got to get to the Winterfest.
Yes, I know. I know. And
great.
get my ham license.
We're going to hear
Paul
the
Martinez. Hello there.
international oohs and ahs coming now. When we see the radio.
Yeah, so we want to see that, and we want to
Yeah, you
know what
should-
you think.
You should have brought your R20 with
Oh,
you.
I almost did. I should have.
Yeah.
I almost did. When you told me you were bringing your R30, I said, oh, I should bring the R20.
Yeah.
So, an ICOM ICR30 wideband receiver.
Yep.
What's the characteristics? What are the important aspects of this new radio?
Well, the part of it is that it's a little bit better, lower drifting.
Okay.
But the major thing is that
Or stability.
it does stability. The
Put it on screen.
yeah,
Look at that, guys.
yeah, there we go.
I see people drooling on their keyboards.
Yeah.
I am drooling on mine, so I.
But it's mainly it has digital
Yeah, it's
modes.
beautiful. So you got digital modes. Are they the same modes?
P25.
The same modes as the R8600?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's no DMR, but there's a rumor that ICOM is going to add it this fall.
Okay.
Which
Yes, I
would
did see the
make it-
rumors about
Which, if they
adding a
do
mode.
that, it would be.
Because I mean, technically, they update the firmware. They could be updating the the decoding modes and all of that in here.
One thing that I found is this seems to be fairly sensitive on HF with just this
With just
antenna.
the telescope. Okay.
No,
telescopic.
the strong shortwave stations I could actually hear, where other handheld radios that I have that have HF,
Okay.
you really need to put it on a.
Because I have an
external antenna.
R20, and I gotta say the R20 on HF is not very good, honestly. But I'd be curious to see how the R30 on HF. That's why I should have brought my R20.
Yeah.
So, anything negative you have to say about it, or
Not really. Other than that, there's no DMR.
no DMR, which is
Anyway.
pretty popular. so-
It is a very interesting radio. The other thing that I kind of miss is like I have a Kenwood D75A, which is a ham radio multiband that will do
Okay.
HF. And it has 12 kilohertz IF out.
Oh yeah, so that you can tap.
And there's a
and
little
do,
program you can run, and I've actually decoded DRM,
DRM with it. Okay.
with an external antenna.
Okay.
And it also has a discriminator out, which I do some signal decoding on
Okay.
VHF, UHF,
Okay.
and the R8600 has the 12 kilohertz out, but it doesn't
Okay.
have the discriminator out.
Okay.
But
Someone wants to know
Frequency coverage. What's the frequency
it's
coverage?
basically long wave to 3 gigahertz.
3 gigahertz, pretty much like the R20.
Yeah, like the R20.
Somebody would like to know what D-Star is.
D-Star is the amateur radio digital mode that ICOM has. Kenwood, this D74A I have will do D-Star.
It's most common on the VHF range.
VHF,
UHF
range.
Okay.
I also do some, I do some ham radio DMR. I also do, Yaesu has their own digital, which is called System Fusion.
Okay.
And one of the annoying things is the fact that when you have a VHF radio, when I actually have two handhelds to do, well, actually I would need three handhelds to do DMR, to do
Yeah, because they each have their own
actually
proprietary
four,
thing.
because one
Yeah.
for DMR, one for D-Star, one for System
Yeah,
Fusion,
yeah.
one for NEX and XDN. I've done digital for years.
Okay.
I've ran programs like before there was trunking scanners.
Okay.
I ran the trunker program to do it with computers and receivers.
Okay.
And I have fun with different spots of radio.
How much does the R30 cost?
About $600 US.
600 US. So about 800 Canadians.
Yeah. I was interested in, for example, in the AOR as one that's much more expensive, includes DMR. I was considering it, but it's got a little bit of stability problems, so I decided.
So it's
to
more
go with
stable
it.
on the single sideband signal.
Oh yeah, this is more stable. Have
found
you tried single sideband on the R20?
the R20. It's stable, but it's off frequency most of the time. It's maybe 20-30 hertz off, which I always find to be something that it cannot be accepted, because I mean you buy $50 radios that have super precise single sideband decoding. So why does a $600 radio not have a very precise single sideband frequency? I never understood that one.
Well, it's got other things in it.
Is it you find the sensitivity to be quite good?
Yes.
And you've been using now the 8600 for more than a year.
And I really,
anything change? Anything, or you just like it more? Or
I like it. It's one of my go-to radios. Although for HF, I mainly use a Watkins Johnson 8711, which is an old premium receiver.
Okay.
It's a first generation, basically, SDR. It's a DSP based radio from the 1990s, and very good audio recovery on it.
Can you do on the R20? I have the dual
Yes.
VFOs, so you listen to two frequencies at the same time.
So right now
It's
I'm
like two
on like
receivers.
HF, and the other one is on the tower frequency.
Okay, so you hear
over
that, like
St.
on the R20, which is an amazing feature. I
Yeah.
totally love that. The fact that you can also scan one frequency range and listen to something on the
Yes.
other VFO is just amazing.
It would be nice if on the dual they also include the 800 band, because then I could use it dual on the 800 band.
And I guess it has limits like the R20 also has.
Because when I was using Trunker, for instance, because this has the remote control.
Okay.
You can basically remote control both of them. And back when I was using a computer program to listen to trunk radio systems on VHF, UHF, if I have a dual radio, you need to have one radio to listen to the control channel all the time, and the other for the voice. And you could possibly do this for VHF, UHF on this, but not 800.
We have Jerry DX that says that he's using a Diamond RH901S antenna on his R30, and it's a great antenna to have.
Yeah.
Apparently. So, wow, really nice. So, gotta get this. It has a rechargeable battery,
Yes,
I would guess.
and a drop-in charger.
Okay. Do they include, the R20 includes a plastic casing for AA?
No, they didn't.
This one is just.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily needed.
But it's separate, but they don't have the accessories for it yet. I wanted to get the case for the protective case.
What I like is the display is a little bit kind of recessed. On the R20, the problem is that the display is slightly popping out. So now mine is super scratched.
Yeah.
Because you tend to you put it on your belt, anything, you just scratch the display.
One thing that was interesting, when I saw this up at the store, when I did this knob, it would control the volume, and there's actually a dial select, so you can change it so that this controls the volume, and then there's side
Oh,
stuff.
okay, like on the
for
R20.
tuning.
R20 you can change which buttons go.
Okay.
R20 also has that.
Oh, okay.
Like on the R20 we have two controls at the top. You can actually switch them if you want to,
Yeah, but
for the
this
volume.
is the side. And
on
then
the
on
side.
the squelch is a button, and they have an auto squelch open and then a manual adjustment.
Yeah, that looks like that resembles a lot of the R20. So there's some of the aspect that they have actually kind of moved from the R20 to R30, but with a better type of receiver probably.
And like the R8600, they have a quick menu with the different things. And this has a somewhat better attenuator on it.
One of the big problems of the R20 that I find is the fact that it easily overloads on signals. Have you had any problems on this R30?
No, but
overloading?
I haven't really tried it like on my Wellbrook loop, which is very hot. I haven't really tried hooking it up to.
Because for example, on the UHF scanning range, I will have often have breakups of stations that
I haven't noticed that, and
Okay.
I've mainly used it with the
Okay.
included antenna.
Okay.
I've only had this a short time, so I haven't.
Yeah, you still haven't played with it.
Played
fully.
with it totally.
There's another question that came to mind that I totally forgot about it. I'm trying to, how's the manual?
The manual, there's two of them.
Okay.
And you kind of have to go between them. It's reasonable.
It's on the R20. The manual is the most horrible manual that I don't know who wrote that manual.
It sounds like the R30. It does explain
Can
things.
explain it better.
Yeah, I think.
Like
so.
on the R20, the manual, you will never understand how to do a scan between two frequencies. Forget it. You follow the instructions. It's just wow. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have you been listening to anything unusual or special lately?
No, not really. I've been listening to aircraft ADS-B.
Oh yeah, 1090 megahertz. Sorry, not
But in
kilohertz.
the U.S., they have the General Aviation has the UAT on 978. So I downloaded. There's a program called Dump 978.
Okay.
And I use that, and I actually have a couple of ground stations nearby, and I've been receiving that.
I've been doing some ADS-B stuff with my smartphone. I put the RTL dongle on it.
Yeah.
And with the app, you can actually receive the signals, and it pops up the plane on the maps where they are actually from the information.
I recently bought the SDR Dual, which is the two-tuner one, and they actually have a setup where on one tuner you can listen to the aircraft band and use the second one to decode the ADS.
Okay.
And they have their utilities set up for that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for that information, Eric. Always nice to see you also.
We have one more guest.
Yes.
We have Jim Hay, VE2VE.
Hello, Jim.
And he is involved with a lot of different things. So we'll let Jim say hello to everyone.
Yep, absolutely. Jim.
How are you trying to sink me for this time?
So, Jim, how are you?
I am well, as far as I know.
So, you've been involved with several little things, apparently.
Amateur radio mostly, and some scanner listing, and Lord knows what else.
Okay.
Trying to stay out of trouble. Not always succeeding.
What are you listening in lately, or actually, what aspect of amateur radio are you more into?
To be honest, administration.
Okay.
No, I do some scanner listing because I tend to have I've got a couple of scanners going, so I'm listening to the ships because I live in Point Claire near the St. Lawrence River, so I can hear the ships in the seaway. I'm also a rail buff, so I've got the railways on. I'm also a fire buff, so I've got a couple of local fire departments on.
Oh, that's fun.
And if I remember, I actually put one of the local repeaters on. If I can remember to charge the battery in my handheld. I've got one handheld with a dead battery because I never charged the damn thing.
Oops.
But I've been active for a number of years in the Montreal Amateur Radio Club, and we've got a couple of repeaters that
I tend to at least administratively babysit, if not sometimes technically.
Okay. Oh, cool. So you, when one of those repeaters break down, you're the
I
guy that gets the
phone
call.
calls. Yeah.
Okay. Anything out of ordinary you want to talk about?
No, not really. It's like everything else has been quiet. I mean, HF is like noise. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're, it's like other people have said. You turn the radio on, you leave it sit. I mean, I should talk. I got 3 radios and no antenna right now. I'm waiting, I'm waiting to cut down a tree, so I've got the room to have the antenna. But you know, when the family had the cottage, I used to listen a lot. I used to spend a lot of time on 6 meters.
Okay.
And what do? It was like now, it was in a sunspot minimum. So what do? You leave the radio on, and every so often you hear something.
I had.
And it happens, and you get some good catches that way.
When we did the VHF show 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, I went to the 6 meter band, and there was some FT8 mode on what's 50.313, something like that, and heard Puerto Rico. And I was like, oh wow, okay, that's kind of cool for 6 meters.
Just because the bands are quote unquote dead doesn't mean there's nothing there.
No,
it does happen.
And with Sportic E, these bands can open at any time.
It happens on HF. Yeah. You get stuff. It pops up from time to time. Well, if you live where Mickey is, it happens all the time. But if you're here, well, you hope for the best.
Yeah, you know, and I think one of the aspects is to have the radio on and make sure that you tune in a little bit. I get people telling me, well, I never heard anything in 6 meters or 10 meters, and it's like, well, you gotta listen more often. It's not because you did it 10 times and there was nothing on that the 11th time there's might be something.
And it's not necessarily. I mean, you don't need the Don Moment Superstation to hear everything. I mean, everybody has their own crane to put up their towers, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, for the rest of us, for a long time, I was working 6 meters with a wire dipole, and I was doing just as well as guys that had 5 and 6 meter, 5 and 6 element beams on 100-foot towers.
Yep.
So
there was
you use what you've got, and a lot of it is just in the skill of being able to pull out the station and work it.
There's an example of somebody I know that tries to listen to AM satellites on the VHF range.
Yep.
And I got a very simple vertical mobile antenna, and I get these amateur satellites, and he was using a fancier antenna and everything, and wasn't hearing anything. So it's it's surprising. Sometimes a very simple setup can sometimes do miracles.
Yes. And sometimes you overcomplicate things, and that's why it doesn't work. But I mean, there's all sorts of things that work.
Absolutely.
And as I guess it was John said earlier, radio is radio. There's all sorts of aspects to it. But
absolutely.
The fact is, people's fascination for radio is still there. The fact that you can get something from A to B and there's no wires in between.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. During the ice storm, that's how we did it, folks.
Absolutely, it's amazing.
It's still true that a lot of the world disasters we have, it's amateur radio is usually the first way we find out about them. Why? Because it works. Radio works.
Yep. Saw that last year with the hurricanes.
Yep.
And I mean, amateur radio is. It's not just some people will tend to take amateur radio as that's a boys for the boys and whatever. And it's like, well, it's a little more than that. You'd be surprised at the amazing aspects that it can actually help out.
Well, I'm active in the Provincial Amateur Radio Association and the Federation now. I'm the treasurer of it. I'm a deputy director for the National Association.
Okay.
And there are all sorts of things. People say, well, amateur radio is dying. No, it's not. It's just changing.
It's changing. Absolutely.
If you look at amateur radio the way it was in 1950, I've got news. It's not the same way it was.
No.
But then nothing is the way it was in 1950. So it's just changing. It's like everything else. It's evolving. It'll be. I don't know what it's going to be like in 10 or 20 years. But it'll still be around.
Yeah, like a lot of people complaining about these modes like FT8 and so on. It's like, well, somebody once mentioned in chat, FT8 is killing the hobby. It's like,
it's just changing.
It's changing. It's and I mean, when you try for FT8 and see that something that you don't even hear is actually out there, and your computer's actually showing.
Computers are changing the nature of the hobby somewhat, because where 50 years ago we had to build it, now we program it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bit of a difference.
I'd rather have people on FT8 and
I remember back in the 90s, and everybody said, "Oh my God, with the changing of the licensing and that, we're going to have all these people that they just want to talk." And well, some of those people, they've gone off to the internet, so there's been another evolution of amateur radio, but it's still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Anything else to add? It's just pretty much it.
Enjoy radio. Keep enjoying it.
Well, it's nice to have you on,
Good to
Jim.
be here.
You know, it's
Enjoy
nice
it.
to see you.
Good to see you.
And so I want to say hi to Luis Arevalo, John Young, that joined in. And hey, anybody else want to say a little something before we end it? Pretty much everybody's done.
Oh, say goodbye to everyone.
Bye, everybody. Nice to
So
meet
why
you,
not?
Jane
Yeah.
Dagger. Jane Dagger, I probably saw you down at
Hello.
Alphabet
Wow,
City
this
in
is
the
a beautiful-
80s.
Everybody in here.
This is a beautiful ending moment.
Probably ran into you in CBGB's back in the day, sweetheart, or on Quake Capture the Flag. So you go, Jane girl.
Bye, Bad Xers, bars, people, mom and dad.
Bye, everybody.
Take care,
And,
everyone.
Last thing I have to say, and I said it online for you, Jill, thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And getting the word out to everybody, bringing all of us together with all these people from all around the world is a great, great thing. It's an international radio club. This is about international radio.
Absolutely.
Our audience is international, and we have you to thank for doing this every
Well,
week
thank
and
you
your
very
time
much.
and effort you put into it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Here is tomorrow morning on CKUT.
Yes, tomorrow
Yes,
morning.
there's going to be a few
14:30.
people in the studio tomorrow.
We will have tomorrow Eric, we'll have Mickey, we'll have me, we'll have John Fisher, we'll have Janice, and Mike Brooker.
Cool.
Yep,
So it's gonna
we're
be
all
a-
going to fit somehow. So.
That's gonna.
Fit to half an hour.
In the humongously large studio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
10:30 tomorrow morning Eastern Time, 14:30
14:30
UTC.
UTC. It can stream on ckut.ca.
Exactly.
And take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for the barbecue.
All right.
Oh, thanks.